This week on NWP, you know what really grinds my gears? You, America. Fuck you. Hello everyone and welcome to Nerds Without Pants, episode 137. We cover everything while bearing it all. I am Julian and I'm joined as always by Patrick.
I'm busy.
I hope not. We gotta record this stupid podcast. Yeah, it is going to be the triumphant return of, I guess not complete regular format, almost regular format. We've got two segments this week instead of, just the Consumption Junction stuff that we've been doing since our return from hiatus. And I think there's not really any housekeeping other than Patrick did his first guest appearance on a podcast, y'all.
Yeah, is that the first one? Yeah, I guess it's the first one I've been on besides this or Pixel Talk, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was on Not Another Tech podcast, nothing about video games. Well, barely, maybe a little bit, but Ethereum based.
A little bit of gamification in there.
Yeah.
I heard that term a few times. That was one of the few words that I understood.
Yeah, you could take a look at that if you want to see more about my career path / professional life.
Yeah. It was kind of eerie because I was like, this isn't the Patrick that I know. This is a different Patrick. This is like the Dr. Jekyll Patrick, and I'm always with the Mr. Hyde Patrick.
Yeah, this is more loose, no holds bar.
Yeah.
That's
the other one was very measured and super techie, so to the point that I could only marginally follow what was being talked about, but you sounded like a panel expert, and I know that you just got your degree not too long ago, so it was pretty impressive.
Thanks, nice. I'm actually going to be on a panel or two later this month, so that means a lot. And I'll be talking about innovation in education and redeveloping communities from the inside out.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so go check that out. It's called Not Another Tech Podcast. They're a pretty new podcast. I think you were on the 5th episode or something like that. It's a pretty new show.
Yeah. So, but it's available on Spotify, so it's pretty.
Yeah, and iTunes. I'm not using the iTunes app anymore. I'm using Overcast, and it was definitely on there. So
nice. Yeah, they use a distribution service so that it gets pushed to a bunch of stuff at once, I think.
Yeah.
Because they don't have licensed music.
Right. Well, licensed music only keeps us from being on Spotify. The issue, the bottleneck is that I don't have the keys, basically. I keep meaning to talk to Nick about that. But I don't know what would happen. If he gave me basically the keys to the show as far as being able to do whatever with it, I don't know what happens to the backlog of episodes. I don't know if because it would probably break the RSS feed and start a new one. And I have 90% of the shows, but I don't have them all. There was a period where I was switching between laptops. And so I was basically saving the final episode on one show or on one laptop and processing it on another one. And so there's a handful of episodes where they're just missing. They're just gone for good, unfortunately.
They could probably be re-downloaded from the store though, right?
Oh, well, yeah. But again, you would have to do that. I would have to do that before we did anything to be sure that, nothing was lost if any, in any possible transition thing. Like I said, I don't really know the nuts and bolts about how that would work. And I always mean to talk to Nick about it and I always forget.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that would be one way to get a bunch of new people, but who cares,
Yeah. We'll just, linger in the bottom of the heap. Although I gotta say, I just want to get on a soapbox real quick. I'm not gonna name names or anything, but I listened to 2 very well-known video game podcasts in the last week that are huge, like big names. People that if you are into video games have probably heard of. And I was astounded at the disparity in sound quality between them and us. So that's not so much like me insulting them as it is like kind of tooting my own horn or our own horn. Cause I was like, damn, we put out a pretty good sounding show for being a, low tech, Skype podcast.
Yeah.
Like most of the time, I think I edit in such a way that you can't actually tell that it's a Skype show, where this was very obviously, a Skype show. So.
Right. I think a lot of those people just get away with like the reach that they've got. And that's, the one part that we haven't really tried to do.
Yeah. Also, and the reason I'm talking about this is because now I have a job where I can listen to podcasts all day again. So I'm running out of shows to listen to. So I've been taking like a lot of suggestions and stuff like that. And, I love our little show because it's really nice to not have a show that's constantly just talking about the news of the week, because every video game podcast talks about the news of the week. And it's like, you can only listen to so many of those in a week where it's like, all right, I guess I'll listen to these people's take on this same story for like the 5th time. It's just, I'm not a big fan of video game news to be, in general. Like, I think it's one of the most boring things of video gaming. So
yeah, we give more like recommendations that could be, timeless or at least considered in the same generation. Like when we talk about Consumption Junction, you'll know like what games to play in this generation way after the fact. Or if we have a stage select, those things are even more timeless. But like, we try to containerize those things into like years as well. When we did the Chrono Crossing that went back to, the first year of video games. So everything that we've got is more, timeless.
Yeah. And I've definitely had a lot of good feedback from people who have been like, oh yeah, I started listening to the show and then I went back and listened to old ones and they're great too. So
yeah, the
show is doing what it's supposed to do on that front. So I'm glad.
Right.
But enough of all that crap. Like, I don't want to bore you guys with that because Stage Select is back. So let's go ahead and jump into that, everybody. Stage Select back from hiatus is my Stage Select. I wanted to know your top 3 pet peeves in video games. And there's a distinct reason why I brought this up, but you're not going to know about it until my number 1 pick. Patrick, I'm very curious to hear. Before I get into that, we got a lot of great stuff.
Nice.
From the listeners. So this is going to be a really fun thing. And one where it's like, another one of those Stage Selects where it's like, there's stuff that I wished I could have picked, but I still get to talk about them because the audience has my back, where it's like, okay, cool. You mentioned that one, so I get to talk about that. Awesome.
Yeah.
But Patrick, lay your number 3 on me, cause, this is an interesting one. Like I think pet peeves in video games is one of those things that really tells a lot about, people as a player. So I think it's also, if you're just coming to Nerds Without Pants for the first time, like maybe, because we came off of hiatus and I've been advertising the show a little bit more, this is probably a nice way to get to know your hosts as far as where we're coming at with video games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm going to put number 3 with something that is probably just more inexperienced / time driven for me, which is paying to play or pay to win, like pay to unlock the rest of the game basically for me, because I can't spend a lot of time on stuff. Like when I got into the Simpsons, like Sims game, basically, you like have to buy more donuts in order to build things faster, right. And things like that really piss me off, because then like I just stop playing the game in general. And it's like, I know like I should be giving to these developers in some way, but I'm not really sure that like actually keeping content away from me and like asking me to pay more for it, like in order to win, is like a good strategy. It's just one that I'm not used to, I guess. And because it's such a new model, I'm going to keep it at number 3, even though in this quatrain that I made, this short poem, it's near the end, but I'll have to do that after I go through all 3 of them.
Okay. That I'm of a couple minds on that, because I think especially if it's like a free-to-play game, I usually don't have an issue with it. Like Simpsons Tapped Out, I think is a really good example, Patrick, because I played that a lot. Mm-hmm. And at some point you get to this, like, you get so far into the game where it's like, okay, this thing's going to take like 24 hours to build. It's not worth it to me to pay extra money to speed that along. It's such a long time period that I'm like, I'm just going to let that cook. I'll just come back later. That type of stuff doesn't bother me. I think where things, and I don't even have problems with the ones, like, I don't know if you remember, like, cause I think EA started this, like, back in the 360 era, where, like, I think Tiger Woods was the first one to do it, where you could just pay, like, a premium fee to unlock everything in the game.
Yeah.
A lot of people complained about that, but I was like, if you've got the money and you don't have any time, like, you just want to, like, be able to play the game unfettered in the few, like the hour a week that you have to play or whatever, I don't really have a problem with that, provided that the game itself isn't structured in such a way that it's going to take you, hundreds of in-game hours to unlock that stuff. Yeah. Right? That's where things get dicey.
It's a tough balancing act, and I don't really know where the line is, but I know that I would really like to have those options sometimes, at least at like the beginning of RPGs, to start unlocking more gameplay mechanics. But on the other side, when I come back to, like, in the middle of an RPG and there's already like a lot to know, even if it's an action RPG like Neo, but like more so a strategy or a tactical one, like I need to relearn all those things, and then there's a high bar of difficulty in order to start playing it again. Even like another action RPG like The Witcher, which is a little slower than Neo, it is really tough for me to get back into this like heavy battle where I don't have any potions and can't get out. And so it's like if there's a way to pay my way out of this, it might be great. But also, like, I think like the level was just not structured really well, or like I didn't really understand the gameplay mechanics that good to begin with. So there's like other variables there that keep it from being really like annoying, because sometimes it's my fault.
Right.
Yeah, I'm never really sure.
Well, yeah, and like I have not played Octopath Traveler since the last time I talked about it on the show. Basically because listeners kind of clued me into some stuff that really turned me off from it. Basically, the first character that you pick is forever in your party, which means that I'm stuck with ye old Englishy Hannett the Huntress for like the rest of the game. So I have to hear her stupid phrases basically until I beat the game. Mm-hmm. And so that really turned me off. But the other thing is that I've heard that it gets super grindy. Like after you get like, all 8 characters, all of a sudden the level cap to the next, or for the next stuff, is like pretty high compared to where you're at that point. So there's a lot of like kind of imposed grinding, and I can almost see myself wanting to be like, I'll throw you guys like maybe $5 to just let me like jump up 5 levels, because like the battle system for the regular grunt enemies is slow enough that I don't want to have to do that for 8 or 9 hours to get up to where I need to be to continue the story of the game.
Yeah, I would eventually have to do that in some RPGs late in the game if I like streamlined my way through things and got past some bosses or dungeons at like lower levels than required. So like eventually it does catch up on me, like regardless. But I wouldn't like that just to happen right at the like dawn of a new stage, such as like the older Phantasy Stars, which just seem like they didn't really have quality assurance or somebody testing them. And you gotta like give somebody like at a base, like a novice level, like the ability to see if they're good at that portion of the game and then like change it or not. You gotta get those types of people that aren't that experienced. And then, the more experienced people like me will like have a better time at it. But even if like I just feel like, oh man, this is so grindy, I'm doing it for like 4 hours right away, it's like not something that should happen at the beginning of a quest, and also something that deters me from getting through it, as I've passed through many more RPGs than like when I was young. and I still am, but like I just feel so much like wind taken out of me when I do those RPGs that start either so simply and require you to level up so much, or they require you to level up so much because there's something really difficult right in the next dungeon, or right when you get out of like your home. Like it's just, nothing's happening.
I also think that it's a matter of game design. Like when I heard that about Octopath Traveler, it legit surprised me because I was like, Square, this is something that y'all have had solved since 1992. Because like once Final Fantasy IV came out, their RPGs were very much like, as long as you're not running from every fight and you're just like kind of going through the game, you're going to be about the level that you should be for everything that you do. And then if you want to, you can go out of your way to like boost your levels. Or, you know, if you go on any like side content, then you're going to be a little bit overpowered, honestly. So it was just like kind of surprising me as like, wait, you're saying that if I play the game normal and fight in every fight that I get into, I'm still going to be like underleveled when I need to like progress the story? That's no, no, thank you.
Yeah, I think sometimes they kept like ends of the games, or like in Final Fantasy 13, when it opens up to the large plain near the end of the game, you had to level up for like 20 hours there. It felt like, at least for me. And that was like the most streamlined out of all the Final Fantasies. So I think they do it on purpose once or twice in the RPG, and I guess that's okay. But yeah, I mean, it just makes you feel like you're playing an RPG of old at that point, I guess. But I don't know. I'm not really, I feel like there's better ways to like make that plot progress. Like you can have random time elements, or random events, I should say, during that process of leveling up that happen once every like 5 levels, where during a battle or something, like a bunch of characters move out of the battle and start speaking in dialogue, like something just ends up happening in the battleground, you know, like characters talking to each other that develop them further. Like, I just really feel it's a missed opportunity when you do the same thing over and over again. So there should probably be like a random event thing that happens like during the process to break it up and make you feel a deeper connection to the characters over time, instead of just like dehumanizing them.
Yeah, totally. Well, speaking of like game design issues, my number 3 is one that, if you've been listening to the show for a long time, you know that I've been kind of trying to come up with my unified thesis of my problem with open world game design. So my number 3 is basically what I've boiled it down to, because I thought about this a lot of how I should word it, but it basically boils down to boring open world design. And that can take a myriad of forms. You can have large, like, vastly open areas that basically are large just to be large and don't really have much in them. A la Final Fantasy 15 and Metal Gear Solid 5, where it's like really pretty to look at, but not a lot going on. It's more of just an excuse to get you to travel for a really long time between exciting things. Or you can have a situation where you just flood the map with repetitive, lame side content that, you know, like if you are a completionist, or if you just want to like wring as much value out of your game as possible, like that's gonna like burn you out real quick. And games that I put in that category are like most of the Ubisoft games. Like I was especially thinking of like the first Watch Dogs, because it kind of combines both of those problems, where it's like not only is there a ton of boring, repetitive stuff like shoehorned into the map, but they're constantly having you crisscross back and forth for those things. Yeah. So it's like, we really want you to explore our rendition of Chicago, guys. Right. Like, and you're gonna see it all.
And as a person from Chicago, like, it was also annoying to see it unaccurately represented.
Right.
There was like big buildings that just aren't there at all, and some stuff that's like placed oddly in the city that's not really where it was in the first place. So it's like these people came from Los Angeles for a little while and were like, let's put those things in there and call it Chicago.
Yeah. And, you know, there are caveats to this. Like I think that I I've noticed that I will give that type of design a pass if the moment-to-moment gameplay is fun enough. So, like, I have no complaints about the open world design of the Mordor games or the Saints Row games, because, like, Saints Row 4 makes me a hypocrite, because Saints Row 4 has, a boring palette swap of the city from Saints Row 3, but it's like uglier, like the aesthetics of it are bad, and it has like multiple repetitive tasks, but the moment-to-moment gameplay is so damn good that not only do I not mind it, but I actually actively seek out all of that stuff just because I want to do it all. So there are exceptions to this rule, but then you have stuff like Mass Effect Andromeda where it's like, you gave me 6 planets that are just really spread out, and most of this content just feels like busy work / filler. And none of it really feels like I'm building my characters or advancing a story or anything like that. And it's just kind of a bummer. It's like, and again, going back to what we talked about a couple episodes ago about just like how damn long these games are. Like when you're playing a 60-hour game and you realize that like a good like 10 to 20 hours of that was just because you were crisscrossing the map to get to the next quest marker or something, just to do like something that ended up not being that fun to do anyway. It's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, that makes you question if you should be playing the game.
Exactly, yeah. And I have put down many an open world game, or almost put down some. Like, Final Fantasy 15, I definitely thought about putting down. And in the end, like, it came down to me really loving those characters and also just the spectacle of it. Because I was like, this is a damn gorgeous looking game. So I just want to see, all the set pieces for it in the, as far as the storyline goes.
Yeah. I mean, Final Fantasy 15 was wonderful, and you're just hard on Final Fantasy games.
I'll get to it in Consumption Junction, because I played a game where it was like night and day as far as like how to handle quests in an open world RPG. But enough about that. What's your number 2, sir?
Well, number 2 is one that, I mean, I feel like if you've listened to every episode, and I know some of you have, you'll understand where I'm coming from, and that's like life when you go through a level and then all of a sudden you get to this hardcore boss out of nowhere that is like not indicative of like what you learned throughout the rest of the level. And like just you take hours at it and it seems cheap for no reason. So you may have remember my Metal Gear Rising Revengeance or
Nano Machine, son,
or God of War 3 stories, but yeah, Cerberus is a bitch at the gates of hell, and I guess like he's supposed to be, but man, like you shouldn't. Those things, I don't want like easy ways out. Like I would never do that at the end of a game, like a Mario game. I don't take the golden Tanuki suit or whatever and just like fly through the level. But you just got to make sure that those gameplay mechanics that you've been teaching or trying to get people to use for the rest of the game are used at the end, instead of just like randomly killing you because there's new styles like that the last boss is using, or like you're just totally underpowered and it's not really an RPG in the first place where you can level up stuff. So like, I mean, I feel like in those streamlined games it's easier to have like a final boss, but sometimes they just want to make it seem like it's more difficult in the end, and there's like this is another like, did you really test this kind of thing to me, where you could so tell from somebody else who's playing it for the first time that like this doesn't belong there, like just the difficulty's way too high. I mean, I guess part of that's me playing it on hard mode usually the first time through, but like if I can get to 3/4 of the game and then all of a sudden you got like 3 final bosses in a row that I can't heal from, and like they require me to like dodge in new ways or like use gameplay mechanics that I forgot about, or like there's a new one all of a sudden, then it's really like you didn't teach me along the way to get better at these things, and they shouldn't have been part of the final test.
Yeah, I think especially because I think there are some games that will have like bosses sprinkled out throughout the game where it's like, what the hell is this? Like, this doesn't match up with anything that you've had me do up until this point. And it's one thing to be like, hey, this boss has like a gimmick that you have to exploit, cause I think Zelda does that really well, where like each boss has like a thing that there's like a trick to it, and the whole point of the boss battle isn't necessarily your skill as much as it is using your wits to figure out, okay, how do I use this tool, to exploit this boss? And that I think is fine. But when you just throw in like, okay, now in this action game, this boss is a stealth fight. It's like, wait, what? Like, no, that's not how that should work. But I'm right there with you, especially with last bosses, Patrick, because I feel like the last boss in a game should be the ultimate test of everything that you've learned up until that point. A lot of people, myself included, really love to bag on the final boss of Batman Arkham Asylum because it's basically a fist fight with a giant mutated Joker. And it's like the last fight with the Joker, like the actual fight should be you pressing the X button and knocking him out with one punch, because that's Batman versus the Joker, right? What that last part should be is like the toughest stealth section in the entire game that makes you use all of your toys and really outwit everything. Because I think that's how you fight. That's how the Harley Quinn boss fight is that when you get to her, you just knock her out with one hit.
Yeah.
But to get to her is like this super involved stealth room with like all these tricks and traps. And it's like, that's what the final boss of Arkham Asylum should have been, not that weird mohawky Joker.
Right, yeah, that was more like a Bane fight, to be honest. Like, I guess they both use the same kind of steroid or whatever, but I really prefer Batman's detective skills anyway. That's his superpower, like the world's greatest detective. That's the only thing that he has that separates him from like a normal human, which is more developed brain, like matter in terms of like the connections he makes when there's like a mystery. And those things definitely are not at the forefront of hand-to-hand combat. Sometimes they do that at the very end of games, like even Metal Gear Solid will have like a CQC mission or something, but they like put their entire, like a third at least of like their gameplay is like based on CQC. So like you could kind of see that coming, even though I really like using other gadgets in that game as well. But yeah, I mean, like at the end of 3, it was just so beautiful when you faced the boss anyway.
The boss.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say that, like, if we want to, like, go the other way and at least, like, call out some ones that do it well, the end in Metal Gear Solid 3 is one of those fights where it's like, oh, you gotta use everything in order to take this guy out. And same thing with the Mr. Freeze fight in
I was just gonna
Batman Arkham City.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was, like, a better, final fight than, the Joker's would have been. That was...
Yes, absolutely.
I was just, like, not quite sure if it was the first or the second one. But I do have, like, right in front of me, I've got 2 2-foot tall statues of the Joker and Harley Quinn from Arkham City, and they're amazing.
Oh yeah, I remember you showing me those. Those are nice.
Yeah, I love it. And they're just right next to my TV now. But yeah, I just love that game more than maybe any game that, like, at least Batman's been in, but like it's probably my top superhero game of all time. Best story ever.
So, my number 2 is, I will freely admit that this is very much a me thing. I'm sure this doesn't bother anybody else in the audience, or maybe this is going to be like a How I Met Your Mother glass shattering thing where it's like, now that I tell you about it, you're going to notice it all the time and it's going to bug you just as much as it bugs me. Anytime you're playing a video game and you have a certain number of targets, like let's say that you're in a combat zone and you have to destroy 4 turrets, and either your partner or the person on the radio feels the need to tell you how many you have left after each one, as if you don't know how to count. It is one of the most aggravating things to me, where it's like, oh, I just destroyed that first one. They're like, 3 more to go. And it's like, yeah, I know, because there were 4 total, and I destroyed 1. I'm good.
Yeah.
And like, I understand that it's probably two things, right? One is like trying to keep the player on target, to keep you from like getting too far off of your objective and stuff like that. And it's probably also a matter of focus tests where they put the game in front of people who, like your more casual players. I'm not going to insult them by saying that they don't know how to play games or anything like that, but people who aren't, as dialed into it as like you and I are, who need that extra little push of like, wait, I wasn't paying attention. Like, what did I need to do again? But I feel that you can just have that character like gently remind you of what you're doing instead of like feeling the need to do this countdown of, and it's not like it's a big number. It's not like you've got like 50 of these, right?
Right. I was thinking for like the bigger numbers sometimes in like a Ratchet and Clank game when you're trying to collect something, an inobtrusive, like ticker on the top right corner or wherever it may be in the HUD is really good for like seeing how many you got left, or even like a mini map in that instance is kind of okay with me because like it's really annoying when you've gotten like 49 out of 50 things and you can not really tell where the last one is. You just like missed it instead of having to go back and comb the place. But like when there's like one left of 3 things, it's just, it's along the same lines of having a tutorial that shouldn't exist. And that's probably going to be your number one, but
spoilers, but you know me well.
That's hilarious.
Dude, it annoys me to no end. I forget what I was playing recently that did it. Oh, yeah, God of War did it a couple times. Also, it was just coming out of the brat's mouth, so I'm just like, shut up, kid. Yeah. Shut up, kid. I know what I'm doing, kid.
Yeah, so yeah, along those lines, actually, before we move on, I had a celebrity appearance from a friend named Jesse who's on my amateur pool team, and he might actually guest soon, but he had a little something to say about escorts. And no, it's not.
Oh, for escort missions?
Yeah, like his celebrity pet peeve he was calling is that he hates escort missions and time limit scenarios. And like, I'm like, sometimes you gotta escort a person in a time limit. That just must be like the worst. But like, just like you and me, he likes to enjoy the whole scenery and like the environment. So it's really about enjoying the journey and like combing every piece of the area for every little piece of gold or every little treasure before you move on. And if there's a time limit, he's just like, why are you not letting me enjoy this?
Time limits can give me a little bit of a headache. I usually don't mind escort missions provided that they're done well. The ones that I have a problem with is where all of the enemies make a beeline for the person that you're escorting and basically ignore you completely, even as you start attacking them. And so it's like, you're setting me up for failure here, guys, because he's got way less health than I do, and he can't heal himself. And it's like, these guys aren't even paying attention to me. Final Fantasy 14 does that a lot.
Yeah.
And Yakuza 0, there was like a side quest that I did where this guy wanted to like basically just cross a bridge wearing this like inflammatory jacket, and people kept like stepping up to him. But it's like they were ignoring my character and just like pummeling him. And it took me like 3 or 4 times to like get it down. And that's also because like the combat in Yakuza is very rigid. So it's like once you throw a punch, you're committed. You can't adjust your angle. So it's like,
yeah,
I whiffed on that one. I'm going to have to punch a couple more times before I can get out of this combo and turn around. And meanwhile, this poor guy's getting his ass kicked.
Man, I really hate, honestly, that's something I didn't really think about. But like when I'm in the middle of a combo and I've already pressed all the buttons, it's just like, I'm looking at it like, oh, I wouldn't have done that now, but I did it back then when I pressed that 4-button combination, and I'm still looking at the second animation.
Right. I feel that Japanese action games do that a lot more than Western ones, where Western ones typically allow you to interrupt your moves mid-combo, or at least like change your direction mid-combo. So it's like, God of War was great about this. Where, you could be hitting this enemy in front of you like 3 times and then whip around and finish off the combo on the guys behind you. And I always really liked that.
Fighting games are really good at it too, but like that's all about the gameplay mechanic of you facing off in a combo against your opponent and like being able to cancel those as well as absorb like a move if like you're in the middle of a combo, and using it in the next move is often like the hallmark of like a good, well-balanced, fighting game, because you have the ability to stop the combo, even though there's like an animation that takes a little bit longer. So like it takes the latency down a little bit, but it's really hard when you got two people playing remote, and that's really, probably the thing that holds video games or fighting games back in specific.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit angry about that, because like a lot of the times that's something that's really random, and my number one is, and I can go along with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
My number one is something like this is the most random thing that happens in video games, and it was happening to me like in the last 2 weeks for hours on end. And like it's in a game where I really like it and respect it. It's like very well balanced and makes you use everything that you learn in a certain level in order to beat the final boss. Like they don't seem very difficult when you like use those tactics that you've learned throughout the rest of the level, but they also seem fair because they're a little bit harder, or you maybe require somebody else's help if you haven't leveled yourself up enough, like a Dark Souls game. But this game is Nioh, and there's this one level where and I'm going to say good things about it later on, but there's one level where you're like on top of the water in these like little bridges, and you're just falling off random edges left and right. And I'm like, this would never happen to me in real life. You can kind of tell when you're in an edge, like without looking in real life. So like this should never be a big issue for a game that's not known for platforming, and you're just falling all of a sudden off the side. Or like sometimes you don't even press the button and it just like does like a forward slash off the edge. And I'm just like, come on, like I have to get back to my soul in order to get like the rest of my level up, Amrita they call it, in order to like proceed to the next level to make myself better for the final boss. But like I got so far like so many times right before the boss, and then like I would just fall off a random edge, or like when I'm climbing up and down something, like I'll like jump off the side of it for some reason, or like you're right next to the edge of like just shallow water, and for some reason like you just can't do anything like as a ninja / samurai, where like I feel like if you're that good at hand-to-hand combat, you'd probably be able to swim,
right?
And maybe like you're in like some demented alternate reality where the second you hit the water you just get poisoned and die or something, but at least make that clear to me. And you should probably like change your game up to make it not so painful for like the player, because I like didn't die that much in terms of actually getting killed by enemies, but I died so many times just because of like
environmental kills, basically.
Yeah, like not having the sensitivity that I needed in my pad, as well as the environment just, it's not even moving. Like I could see like, oh, this wave comes up and smashes me off the side and takes me under its like undertow. Yeah. Like but damn, like that should never happen in that. And that's why I love The Legend of Zelda, because like a lot of the times they don't even have you jump, and if you do jump, it's like a jump you're supposed to make. You just like you just run across the edge and it does it automatically in a game like Ocarina, and that is like what you do as a human. You can kind of tell the jumps that you'll be able to make, and like you can kind of feel the edges of things, like even like on your back heel, just as a human. So like you should have that kind of sensitivity, that sixth sense for like your place in the world. And I feel like these games are totally missing it at a primitive level.
Well, I'm kind of torn on that one, because when I see an edge in a video game where it seems very like you should be able to jump off or fall off, and it just basically puts an invisible wall against it and keeps you from, like, almost like a safety net. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a disconnect mentally for me, where it kind of breaks the immersion of the world. Mm-hmm. But also I agree with you in the sense that, like, if you have this master at combat and movement, then maybe they should have like some animations where, cause I can understand if you're in a fight and you're like mid swing and the enemy moves out of the way and then there's a pit behind that enemy. Yeah, you're going to topple over, right? But maybe your character should be skilled enough to be able to grab that ledge and pull themselves back up.
Yeah.
Right?
I think there should be like some, inverse tension from your joystick that makes you feel like, oh, you literally can't go there. Like it like pulls you back a little bit, or you can't push up the thumbstick as much as you would, or the mouse comes back a little bit, whichever, controller you're using.
Yeah. I guess it also depends on the design of the game, right? Because I know the Dark Souls games use that to their advantage, because there's definitely parts where it's like, you just got to take a leap of faith here, guys. Like, you may die, or you may get like some awesome treasure. You know,
that's cool. You just, like if that happens,
you gotta like, roll the dice.
Yeah, but if you're rolling the dice for something you understand, that's one thing. But then, I mean, and Neo does that sometimes, or like Final Fantasy 15 actually does this in a secret dungeon to a like great extent. But also, that game wasn't meant for platforming either. And there's like small places where you just need to go through, like obviously, and like you would, if you fall off the edge, you'd probably grab it with your hand or something in real life and bring yourself back up if you have the strength. But these people, they just like jump 15 feet off the side and are like, ah!
The worst part too is if it's a game that doesn't have like height restrictions normally. So it's like you can, as long as there's like ground beneath you, you can jump, you know, from like 50 feet in the air. But then if you fall into this chasm, you're just done for, right? Like, or again, like you said, like, oh, here's like 3 feet of water. You're dead.
Right. That would also happen like in an Assassin's Creed game, either like when I'm like way atop like steeples or something like that, and I'm like bouncing back and forth from like one brick wall to another. All of a sudden it may leap perpendicular and jump way out of nowhere and then just desynchronize. I'm like, no, I didn't do that in the first place. I didn't even press that kind of a button. I'm not sure why he just jumped sideways, but it happened.
Yeah, that's definitely one of my biggest problems with the Mordor games is they'll try to do this predictive, like, we think this is where you want to be, so, you know, he's going to stick to it. But it's like, sometimes it predicts way wrong, and it's like, why would you think that I want to jump onto this, like, foot-high fence? Why do you think that that's a thing that I would want to do while I'm running away from orcs? Clearly, I want to jump to this wall here and scale it out of the way. Yeah. But no, you thought that I wanted to perch on this 1 foot tall object. Okay.
Yeah, like with Ezio or something, all of a sudden, it's parkour time.
Exactly. Well, that's a fine number one, Patrick. You, knowing me, guessed my number one, which is video games treating you as if you've never played video games before.
I'm so glad I got this, because I was like, why hasn't he said this yet? Oh, it's because we got one left.
Exactly. And this takes a few different forms. I mean, I definitely have problems with over tutorialization. You know, I think the joke now is if they made Super Mario Brothers today, as soon as you started playing the game, there would be like a pop-up that says, press A to jump, hold B to run.
Run right to finish the level.
Exactly. And it's like, you know, where we come from a time where it's like, you just figured this out. As video gamers, like, you learn a certain language of how video games operate, right? Right down to control schemes where it's like, this is a vehicle-based open world game. I bet that the triangle/Y button enters the vehicle, right? Yeah. Because all of them do. Yeah, like, and I don't need to be told that.
Right, Y is kind of like I'm getting in something, or like I'm going over. Like, it's just the closest button, so you figure just based on proximity that would be the one to do it. But
right, and typically X/square, depending on the controller you're using, that's going to be your attack, right? Unless it's one of those games that uses the triggers for attack.
Right, and X could be jump in that case, you know?
Yeah. It's kind of funny, right? I remember the first game that did like an in-game tutorial was like, that I remember was the first Soul Reaver game. And I thought it was the coolest thing because it was like story-based, where the person who had brought you back from the brink of death was basically telling you what you could do. And there were like these little rooms where you had to like prove it, right? And I was like, some of those work pretty well. But when it comes down to like, we need to teach you how to move your camera, or, you know, how to walk forward, and we're not going to like let you proceed until you know, press the stick forward to move forward. It's like, guys.
Right. It's like, oh shit, this game
Come
has a
on.
bad camera right here.
So there's that form of it that bugs me, but the more insidious one, and the reason that I came up with this stage select topic is the sidekick character that treats you like an idiot the entire time you're playing. The first one that I've talked about before on the show was Fee in Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. And I've said many times that I put that game down when I was about to save my game, and she paused the gameplay in order to come out and tell me how to save my game. Mm-hmm. And it's like, yeah, done this before.
Yeah.
Don't need you to like break up the proceedings just to tell me that, you idiots. Right?
Right.
But the worst one that I've seen probably ever is fucking Atreus in God of War, who not only, so there's a lot of ways that he's really annoying in this respect. One of the worst ones is that when you go into a room that has a puzzle to solve, he will immediately start pointing out things in the environment before you even have a chance to look around. Right? Cause I'm the type of gamer who's like, I'm gonna mill about and I'm gonna like find stuff and look around this corner and everything. And he's like constantly like, oh, that looks like something that we can use. And over here, this looks interesting. Like, I bet this has to do with that. And then if you take longer, he's like, why aren't we doing anything? And he'll start like questioning you, and in a really annoying, snotty way. And it's like, you fucking brat, just shut the fuck up. Just shut your mouth for one moment.
That's what it would be like to have a kid.
It probably would be, but I don't have any kids, do I? And there's a very good reason for that.
Yeah.
Because I would be in jail.
You should have an option to get an abortion.
Like, the whole time I'm playing that game, I'm like, you could Spartan kick him off of this ledge. You could just disembowel him here with your axe.
What if you had that, like, opportunity in a game? You either aborted the child or had to go through the tutorial.
Just kill the helper character. Just be like, I don't need you.
Yeah.
You could play Halo and just like take Cortana out of your helmet. It's like, no, I'm going to figure this out on my own. Thank you.
Yeah, you should like literally be able to take the chip out or something like that. That like going rogue would be awesome. Like you can do that in Neo, and it's a reason I think you would like it, because like after the first large mission where you have more of your, it's kind of like Metroid where you have a lot of your stuff at the beginning and then you restart for some reason. But like you have the option to go to the dojo and learn all the training missions, which actually like it's really involved and kind of important that you do that, but you don't have to. And if you're going to play it multiple times, then eventually, I mean, especially then, you're not going to go to the dojo and learn the basic tactics again. But it's awesome that you can even go back to the dojo when you like learn more advanced stuff. And like there's memories of it that are like preserved and you can look in your like menu. So it does it almost perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, there's a good way and a bad way to do it. And I think I've said before, like, basically, I'd like an option at the beginning of a game to say, hey, I've played video games before, right? So maybe let's skip some of this preamble stuff. Just teach me the stuff that's unique to your game. And then I think, games are smart enough now to where it's like, if it's clear that I don't know what I'm doing because I don't know how to do this certain move or whatever, then tell me like, oh, hey, did you know that you can do this? And it's like, oh, no, I didn't. That's good to know. Especially in this day and age where like there's no instruction manuals. I think that's the thing that used to bug me when we still had those, was like, I read the manual. So I know what I'm doing.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes the manual I just like to look at.
Oh, absolutely. That was always my ritual when I would buy a new video game. It's like, take that wrapping off, read the instruction manual cover to cover. And especially, and I would love games that had like really clever instruction manuals that had like more story in them, or would do like the character bios as if they were like files in somebody's, computer or something like that. Yeah. Like the really well thought out instruction manuals are something special.
Yeah, those are pretty awesome when they really formatted it well, but you don't get that anymore. You get those in game, and I guess that's okay, making it more digital. But when I was like growing up, I would always look and be like, this is how one game is different from another exactly when I open it. Like I could see what artwork's on the disc, what's on the back of like the cover. And if they didn't utilize that in some way, like a lot of the Final Fantasy games did when you took out like even the 3DS for theater rhythm, you could see on the back like an alternate cover that you could switch between. And if you weren't looking at one of the covers, it would like protrude through the back of the cartridge holder. And like those kind of things are like fun and awesome. And you don't get those with all digital games, which sucks. But like now you don't even get them with physical games because they don't even give you that booklet most of the time, or they give you one page that says find it at this like HTTP.
Yeah. I think, I actually just bought a collector's edition of a game that one of the special features of the collector's edition was an honest to goodness physical instruction manual.
That's crazy.
It was the 20th anniversary or 25th anniversary flashback remaster for the Nintendo Switch. And it's got a reproduction of the original instruction manual from I guess it looked like it was the Genesis version, but right down to like the same diagrams of like, here's what the character looks like when he's jumping. And I was like, that's all right. I don't mind paying a little extra for that.
Yeah, I like those kind of artwork pieces, and you get those even like with limited editions of the new Mega Mans. They'll give you like the option to get like an old cartridge or something like that like looks limited, but also has like a physical manual still. And Mega Man was one of the best cases where like it was so simple, but they also would tell you about every boss and give them like a little backstory because they weren't going to do it during the game. That was all about gameplay.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, one of the special things that we have on Nerds Without Pants is our lovely listeners, Patrick.
What they do
and
this time?
We got well, they came in droves to bring back Stage Select. We're going to start over at pixelbit.com as we are wont to do. First up is San Andreas. I'm just going to go in the order that he put them. Number 1, he agrees with me. Tutorial levels, especially unskippable ones. I know how to walk and how to press A to jump. I should not have to demonstrate it to the satisfaction of the game to proceed. This isn't school. If you must have tutorial levels, make them a selectable option on the main menu. Keep them out of the game itself. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I the first time that I saw it integrated into the game, I thought it was the coolest thing ever, but I'm over it now.
Yeah.
I think having it in the options is a perfect way to do it. Again, unless you're introducing abilities and stuff along the way where it's like, you should probably learn how to do it. Honestly, actually, Patrick, like what I like on like games like Horizon, like when you go to like level up and learn new abilities is that they'll give you like a little, animated GIF like window showing you what the move looks like and how to do it. So it's almost like a little mini, not a tutorial, but it's like, hey, here's how to do this thing and this is what it looks like. And it shows you that even before you purchase the item with your ability points, just to be like, is that something I want to use? Or is that gonna like be useless to me? And it's like, you can kind of get an idea of when this is like actually useful. And I think that's a really good way to do stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, but the way we're going toward it, it's going the exact opposite. Pretty soon we're going to have a level devoted to learning how to jump. And it's going to be hilarious. It's going to be, you jump and it says, are you sure you want to jump? Confirm. You got to press a different button in order to confirm the jump button.
Or pay 50 donuts in order to skip this tutorial. Oh, it comes back around.
Yeah, oh no, but during the process you fell off a random ledge and died.
Speaking of random ways of dying, San Andreas' number 2 is stealth missions, especially in games that aren't really made to handle stealth, and most especially when discovery results in an instant game over or mission failure. I like stealth games, but forced stealth missions in games that aren't built around stealth can get the hell out. And like you said, like the worst ones are like, you got spotted and now you're dead. And it's like, I have mowed down how many hundreds of you guys up to this point?
Yep.
So yeah, I can't really think of any examples right now. I feel like I played something not too long ago that had that exact thing and it was like, oh, really? One of these again? Okay. And San Andreas' last one. This one, I was kind of scratching my head. He says bad voice acting. Whether it's the hyperactive voice acting you see in a lot of Japanese games, or the flat doped out on, Haldol delivery you hear in Western games. And as a related topic, repetitive voice clips. I feel like that's not as much an issue anymore. Like, I feel that voice acting pretty much across the board these days is pretty darn good, unless you're playing a budget title. I'm right there with you, San Andreas, on repetitive voice clips. see my discussion about Octopath Traveler last episode. That stuff really gets on my nerves, and it's one of the reasons I put the game down. But I feel like, especially like Western games, like the voice acting these days is just like top notch. Like, you know, I've been in awe of like the games I've played lately where I'm like, damn, these are some really good voice acting performances.
Yeah. Sometimes the voice acting doesn't match up with the lips though, and that can be kind of funny, like if you're watching a Jackie Chan movie, but if you're playing a game like Final Fantasy X, it used to take me out of it. So I know when like it gets really annoying.
Yeah, but that was more of a technical limitation, because like, even if you just fast forward, like, I think it was just like 1 year to Kingdom Hearts, like, they took the extra time to like lip sync, like basically reanimate all of the faces to make everything fit. Final Fantasy X too does that as well. So it's kind of weird. It's like, well, not weird, but it was kind of amazing to me just in like a very short span of time, like the huge improvement in that area. Cause yeah, Final Fantasy X was kind of laughable in parts where like, it's like, oh, you didn't even try.
Yeah.
Like this is very clearly not matching up.
Yeah, I feel like they must have not even changed it from Japanese and just did that, or they just like had random movements to the mouths. I don't know. It was one of the more uncanny valley type characteristics of a character that would really take me out of it, and that coupled with like the eyes are always weird.
Right. And I remember having a discussion on Twitter with our friend, Mike Fallick about this. And one thing that I don't think a lot of people have noticed, like, it definitely took me a lot of notice, but if you ever watch anything that originates from Japan in Japanese, and I'm talking about anime or video games, they don't even try to match up the stuff. Like, you will see the character's lips start to move like a few frames before any voice comes out. And I think it's just because like Japanese is a particularly difficult language to animate lips for. So it's kind of like this workaround that they do. Whereas when you bring that stuff over to America, especially like dubbing anime, they try to like basically rewrite the dialogue in order to fit it into those mouth movements, because that's what we're used to. So it's just kind of an interesting difference between the way that, you know, America and Japan handles lip syncing. Or lack thereof. Next up is Tyrone Swift, who says, stage select. It feels good to type that again. And he says, he has a preamble. He says, I'd like to start this by saying I actually like the game I'm going to use in a lot of my examples. It's just a more recent game that seems to check a lot of my pet peeve boxes. Detroit Become Human is a decent game that I actually enjoyed, despite some weird writing that I could take or leave. And I swear I'm not trying to throw it under the bus. Go play Detroit, kids. It's fine. I think Detroit is great. But, his number 3 is unnecessary jump scares in non-horror games. This one probably only applies to me, but I do not like jump scares at all. When you put them in a horror game, that's fine, because I know it's a horror game and I'm not going to play it. When you sneak it into a game where I'm not expecting it, though, I really am not a fan. I've told my Batman Arkham Knight story before, where I just stopped playing the game after it did this to me, in my opinion, too many times. It makes me not want to keep pushing, your narrative forward, because now I have to worry about this happening to me. And I know this is just me and the rest of the world doesn't care about this, but I really hate it. Stop sending screaming robo-children, or whatever that was, at me, David Cage. I am a coward. So I can't speak to that, because I like horror and I like jump scares, and they're super effective on me. But I will say that I think that David Cage needs to stop beating around the bush and just do a horror game, because every damn one of his games has had like some really interesting horror elements to them, like undercurrents. And it's like, just go ahead and do it. Like, make Silent Hill. Konami's not doing anything with it, and I think you'd probably make a pretty decent one.
That's a great idea.
I've been wanting that ever since Heavy Rain.
Oh my god, yeah, I was just thinking of Heavy Rain again, because that was also a free game recently, but like I played it way back in the day, and I was thinking about your like idea where, well, the intent never to play it again after you have your own personal experience. And I was just like, yeah, if I had my own personal experience with Silent Hill and it had that creepy undertone the whole time, it would really freak me out. You know, you could kind of pick your own scare.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of, I haven't played it yet, but I did pick it up before I moved. That Silent Hill Shattered Memories for the Wii is supposed to do a lot of that stuff where, like, there's a part where they're basically sort of like, in Until Dawn, where you're talking to a psychiatrist, and based on your answers, it kind of tailors the scares towards you when you're actually in the game. But it's also like, So it makes it a little more personal type of horror. And also, it doesn't have any combat in it. And I feel that like a David Cage Silent Hill game wouldn't have you fighting stuff. It would just have you like being scared and wetting your pants. Tyrone Swift's number 2 is unclear dialogue choices. Let's see. When you're making a dialogue-driven game where I'm making choices that are actually going to matter, please show me a more clear description of what my character is going to say. This has gone on for far too long and it absolutely drives me crazy. Fallout 4 did this, and it was one of the first things I modded out, and most recently Detroit did this. Detroit just gives you emotions to choose from, and you take your best guess as to what you think is the right choice. It drove me crazy the entire game and resulted in me saying some stuff I definitely would not have said had I known what the actual dialogue was. I understood what they were going for because they want you to react more naturally in the conversation, but I'm making choices that are literally life or death, so just give me a second and show me my options. There has to be a better way for all games to handle this, and I hope developers find the solution soon. This one, I can kind of go both ways on it. I kind of liked the way Mass Effect would do it, where it would kind of give you the gist of what you were going to say. But I also appreciated, like, the first Dragon Age game where it literally wrote out your entire line of dialogue. So you knew exactly what you were saying. One of the big, problems that I have in this respect are the Telltale video games. Like, I remember especially the first Walking Dead, where it's like, I literally don't know the backstory for this character, and you're having me answer questions vaguely as if, like, I'm trying to hide something, but I don't know what I'm trying to hide. And then characters are accusing me of lying, and it's like, how can I lie when I don't know what I said? This is causing undue ramifications, and people are hating me, and it's like, I thought I was just saying what was on my mind.
Yeah, that sucks, but that can happen in real life, too. You gotta be really careful with perceptions, but I wish in a video game like that it would tell you that, like,
yeah,
different color, this shit's about to happen, it's not gonna be good. You sure?
Right. Tyrone Stress number 1 is motion controls. Please stop this. Please? I hate motion controls. Can't I just be lazy and lay on my couch and use my thumb to aim the thing?
Thank you.
Why for you make me move? Why for you make me move my arms and look like I'm stupid, Nintendo? Why for you in the QuickTime events that I fail because they no right trigger, David Cage? Why for you make the baby cry in my face because I can't figure out the correct rocking motion in Yakuza 6? I just wish these would go away. It was a fun gimmick for a while, but one I'm actively sick of. I realize that this is the entire point of VR, and incoming hot take, VR kinda sucks. If all games in the future become VR experiences, I'm officially quitting gaming and becoming the grumpy old man who tells the kids about how gaming was back in his day. I'm not about the motion control life. I was right there with you until the VR comment, because I do think that that's where motion control shines.
Yeah.
Like, I think VR is still very nascent, and I think it has a lot of room for improvement. But like, the VR stuff that I have done has felt very immersive thanks to motion controls. But I really feel that, like, it's not going to be all that it can be until it's literally like Ready Player One, where you're just like in a haptic suit. Well, you know, and you're on like a really cool treadmill thingy.
Yeah, I'm like more of an AR guy, thinking like these rooms that you can get that are like AR based, and you could play video games where you're like looking at your walls, but they transform into like other scenes, and you can kind of run in the room like that. That I think will be really awesome. So like, it's going to be good in the future, but we got to take those steps, I think, with these worse games. And that's one thing I didn't get to mention with like Skyward Sword, because the final, this mashes up a bunch of really annoying stuff we've been talking about today into one final boss that's like really just a pain in the ass, and it took me like way longer than anything I've had in another Zelda game. But like, it was because of the motion controls not being so like precise, where like I was doing stuff that I didn't think I would, like, and it was going too fast, but it was also like a really hard boss out of nowhere. So like, I mean, it was funny, it's in the same game as like your tutorial. I guess they like kind of framed it in a way like it doesn't begin and end well, but there's some pretty good things in the middle.
When I see motion controls now, it doesn't bother me all that much. Although I will say, like, to Tyrone Swift's point, like, the motion controls in Detroit were kind of annoying, because it was like usually having you jerk the controller up or down, but it never seemed to register on the first try. Like, for some reason, it doesn't seem quite as responsive as on the PS3 6-axis stuff. So that was kind of a bummer. But the thing that really boggled my mind, and it still boggles my mind, is that Nintendo doubled down on the motion control stuff with the Switch, when they could have very easily taken that shit out. And I'm still of the mindset, and I keep thinking more and more about how, how I said last episode that the Switch isn't really doing what I want it to do as a handheld, and it's not doing what I want it to do as a console. And it's like, I think part of it is like, they could probably save a lot of battery life if those Joy-Cons weren't, because I think they leach battery off of the Switch because they're basically like, they're not connected to the Switch. It's like a Bluetooth thing going on. On top of that, you've got the rumble and you've got the motion control stuff in there. And it's like, just take all that crap out, keep those things attached to the screen at all time. And if you want, you can still do the thing where, you plug it into the docking thing, but then at that point, you just use the Pro Controller. Like, have that come packaged in the system. It just, I don't like it.
Or at least like a more expensive version if you want to say like they can't put that stuff in because video games have been devalued so much or something like that, where you got to just give it one option. But like, yeah, we should be able to employ people to make multiple versions of how to play the game at this point when they're not as sensitive as we like yet.
And, I know, like, people will say, like, well, they kept them in there so that they can do backwards compatibility stuff for, like, the Wii and Wii U at some point. But it's like, for me, just release, like a modern Wii remote that works for the Switch, right? Like, make it an optional thing that you buy.
Yeah.
Like, I really feel the Switch could have been $100 less if they had taken all of those extra features out of the Joy-Cons. And that would have been a lot more appealing to me. Although I still ended up paying the early adopter price for it. So,
but I still got,
who am I to talk?
I got friends that are still just getting into it. Like a, friend who like has to work a 9 to 5 every day now is sometimes playing Stardew Valley when he shouldn't be during work. So yeah, I think a lot of people are starting to adopt it. I'm still waiting for like that redesign that they always like to do with their systems now. So I'm not going to get fooled this time, but
yeah, I'd say give it a year. I wouldn't be surprised if next E3 there's some sort of refresh or, Switch Deluxe or whatever.
It'll be amazing. And just like another story I got about the Switch recently is like this guy at the place where I play pool, the bartender, he actually had a Switch that like one of the first weeks he showed me had Octopath Traveler, like the physical version in it, and like 1,000 other games or something like that. And I was like impressed with the number of games you could fit on the system. But like he also was all like, using a lot of it, I'm sure. I'm not exactly sure how many like games were like from like filling up the entirety of the system, but he had it almost completely full, it seemed like. And in the last week from when like he first said like, yeah, I'll put it up on the screen, it got stolen and he doesn't like have it anymore. Literally someone took it out of his book bag after he was playing it somewhere else.
That sucks. Especially because like Nintendo is not, great about, like if he bought, I'm assuming most of those games were digitally purchased that he had on his system. So that, like, they're not really great about, it's not like Microsoft where it's like, as long as you just sign into your account on any Xbox, there's your games. Nintendo is like, they make you go through this whole song and dance in order to get your crap back.
Damn.
It's like,
I was wondering how that worked, if it's like the DRM in like PlayStation where you can download it up to 5 systems. And after that, I'm sure if you called them up and said, I've gone through a bunch of systems, you can tell or something, that they would help you out.
Yeah.
But it's great that you like purchase a license to like 5 systems at least. So you could like in the PS2 days, especially trade your friends for other games if you just like signed in and downloaded them.
Right.
But yeah, it sucks.
It does. And on to more sucky ones. Superstep chimes in at Pixelbit. Number 1 is, I hate how long many of these damn games are. You brought this up this podcast when discussing Yakuza. Ironically, I'm fine with the way Yakuza is long, because you can finish the main story much faster than in 30 hours. The side content is just actually good enough to make you want to play it more. My beef is with games whose stories go well above 20 hours, because as a single-player game, that to me is the meat of a game. Or a single-player gamer, rather. Yeah, I think games are getting bloated. I think a lot of them can be reduced by half, and they would still feel like complete, satisfying adventures, and would still, because I know a lot of it is like the publishers don't want people beating these games in a week and trading them in. But honestly, when you've got games that are like ballooning up to like 80 hours, if you cut those in half, that's still a pretty damn long game, guys. And most people don't finish games like that in a week. I mean, I used to, back in the day, but they also weren't that long. They were like 20-hour games. But even the game that I've been playing, the most since last episode that I'll talk about in Consumption Junction, there's definitely parts where I'm like, you could very easily like cut the landscape by half and you wouldn't lose anything. And it would just make, getting from point A to point B smoother. And it would cut some time out of here.
Yeah. And at this point, like, we're all for that.
Yeah. It makes me laugh because, I mean, it wasn't that long ago when people were like, oh, like, I don't want to pay for this because it's only like a 6-hour game. And now people are like, I don't want to pay for this because it's only a 40-hour game. And it's like, guys, have some perspective, have some history, realize that you're getting way more bang for your buck these days. I say this as someone who paid full price for Enslaved, which is a 6-hour game on Xbox 360. Number 2 from Super Step is menu systems you're forced to spend time in. I realize this is usually something that happens when I play games that aren't really for me, but inventories like Witcher 3 are a huge turnoff for me because of how massive they are. I just want to play the damn game without worrying about which 7 varieties of plant I need to mix to. I'm getting mad just thinking about this.
Yeah, it would be awesome if like the button you use to like show something before you throw it or use it, like L2 at any given time, could be like streamlined where it just picks the right item that you need the most or something like that. Like, what's logical? Sometimes I don't understand what ailments are being cured when I use something and then I don't have anything else. And I like use something that's like rare, but I didn't have to in some of these games. But like, yeah, big inventory systems really suck sometimes.
Yeah. And so like, I know in Super Step's case, he's not a big RPG fan. So it probably hits him extra hard. Where like you and I have played like a ton of role-playing games in the past, so we're kind of used to this. But I do find it funny, and it seems to stem from like Western computer-based RPGs, like, you go back to like the Baldur's Gates and like the Gold Box games of the world, that I think that's where this is coming from, where, people got used to playing these games on PC and that's how they came up. So they're just used to having like, oh, I'm just gonna open up this, menu and then everything's bound to like a key on the keyboard, or I'm going to use my mouse to select this stuff and it's really easy. And then it just doesn't translate all that well to a console setting. But at the same time, like how many role-playing games from Japan have like a really simple, elegant inventory system? I mean, I feel like Final Fantasy nailed this like, 30 years ago. And I don't understand why they don't just kind of do that. So far, like the best Western game inventory system I've seen has been Diablo 3. It's very easy to navigate. It tells you at a glance, like if this is better or worse. And then if you want, you can drill down into the nitty gritty and really decide if this is good for your build. But if you don't want to surface all of those extra numbers, there's an arrow that like 3 green arrows up means it's really damn good and a lot better than what you have, like it's very simple to read.
Yeah. Speaking of Diablo 3 though, I guess everybody else feels that way too. And we're going to be getting more of that content for years to come.
Oh yeah. They said multiple Diablo projects in the works and I'm so happy.
I bet.
I will say real quick to Super Step's point, on The Witcher 3, I really wish that there was a button to just like reapply the last oil that you used, because the oils only have like 20 charges. And when you're in a big battle, it's like, okay, now I have to like hit start, go back to the inventory, select the oil, and then like apply it to my blade and then go back to the game. And it's like, why isn't there just a quick button for this? That's one of the things you use the most. So, lastly, Super Step says, excuse me, I'm going to have to yell. Any game that doesn't work on my PC. I have a gaming laptop, GTA 4. What is your malfunction? He says, I guess any game that requires you to make or sign into a separate account is a sub-complaint of this complaint because it exacerbates this issue. Again, my blood pressure is rising, so I'll stop. I bought this thing because Adobe Suite should work on it, so I should probably get on using that. I mean, I have never been much of a PC gamer, and it's because I don't like the whole guessing game of, is this going to run on my system or not? I like the plug and play thing of buy a disc, throw it in my system, let it go. But even so, like, yeah, I've heard, it seems like Rockstar games are the worst as far as this stuff. Like, they're just like, even GTA 4, I think is like, it's a very old game, but I think it's still it's a huge resource hog. Also like Crysis, the first Crysis is still a game that's going to tax your system, even if you have a pretty new setup. Like, even though that game is, 13 years old at this point? Like, it's crazy. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And it gets worse and somebody else has this later, I know, with just like poor, PC ports of console games. That can be a big headache. All right. Yeah. That's a really good one, Super Step. Thank you as always for your submission.
Oh yeah. I wanted to thank Super Step too, because I saw he said congratulations on like the exciting stuff that I was doing. And yeah, I don't look at the comments all the time, but when I do, it's nice to see something positive. And yeah, it's hilarious when he said like he'll take my advice and blindly start investing in Bitcoin, which is the exact opposite of what I told people to do, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there was a time not that long ago when you were suggesting people invest in Bitcoin.
Not in that one. Like, I think in Ethereum, I was like saying, and I still believe in that. But like, yeah, I definitely was saying that before it spiked, but I would not use it anymore. There's definitely better stuff out there. But I was thinking last time, I'm pretty sure I said this is not financial advice. And if I didn't, I gotta reiterate that because I'm definitely like more into just diversifying what you've got as funds, but like you should not be putting that stuff in if it's an investment to make money. And like that might happen for a few coins. That's not something that I'm going to speculate on though and be like responsible for, like if you win or lose. Man, it's just such a big gamble if you're trying to move coins in certain places. And yeah, you should like decentralize and make your portfolio stable, like in any kind of investment scheme. But this is more like for just holding and waiting for if like the use cases work out. And it should just be, yeah, in case maybe the US dollar is not worth as much anymore. Any stock could be not worth anymore.
Right.
Yeah. And to his other point, like I don't really know if the Mortal Kombat movie was related to the short on YouTube. We got to figure that out.
I know for a fact that it's not, because that YouTube thing ended up becoming its own thing that I think they did like a few episodes of that you could eventually purchase if memory serves. That is not related to this. That was kind of its own thing. And I'm kind of glad, because that thing was kind of gross, and I didn't like it was like trying to make Mortal Kombat quote unquote like grounded in reality, like they try to do like to make it more believable. And I'm like, guys, I'm here for the ninja that throws ice balls and the guy with blades coming out of his arms. Like I don't need this to be like super realistic and everything. Like, it's Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, but I don't know. Like in the new one, I don't think I saw like Sub-Zero or Scorpion on the list for like who's going to be in the movie. So they might be making it more realistic or more fantastic. They have like, sorcerers and stuff. Like they could be using like, anybody. I don't know. Quan Chi. Yeah, I mean,
you tease Scorpion and Sub-Zero at the very end, right? Like, they're the post-credits thing.
Okay.
So you just see you see a silhouette or something, and you hear "Get over here," right? Like, that's all you need. Last but not least, over at Pixelbit is Xrian, who chimes in with with 3 quick ones. Number 3 is cutscene BS. He says, there's a few I'm lumping in here. Cutscenes that can't be paused or skipped. I can understand not skipping the first time, but any time after that should be fair game. No pausing in any game during any cutscene is complete BS. People have lives and we typically don't want to miss your cutscene. There's a comment coming up, Xrian, that is completely like the opposite of that last sentence, but I'm right there with you. I'm actually surprised when I play a game today and I'm like, oh, I can't pause this cutscene? Really? Okay. Like, again, like I think people have figured out by now. I've been playing The Witcher 3 a hell of a lot, and I'll talk about that in our next segment. But last night I was playing it, and I really had to pee something fierce. But I had gotten myself into a plethora of cutscenes back to back, and I was like, I can't pause this, and the only option is to skip it, and there's no way in hell I'm skipping a cutscene in this fantastic game. So I just held it and held it and held it, and then finally the cutscene ended and I had my release. Number 2 is the losing all your gear stealth mission. Metroid style is one thing. A small tease of your potential in the first 10 minutes is fine. Losing all your stuff 40 hours into the game to force a stealth mission is unbearable, especially since it's usually an afterthought, so you're not getting a great gaming experience like a traditional stealth game. Again, like, I definitely have issues with, like, the forced stealth mechanic, but I kinda like the whole, like, you got captured and they took all your shit, and now you've gotta, like, basically survive just with your wits and nothing else, and then get out of that situation. That, I kinda dig that stuff, to be honest. Remember the prison scene in Metal Gear Solid 1, Patrick, where you had to use the ketchup?
Yeah.
Like, that was like, I love that.
Yeah, when you have to do things out of the ordinary during a cutscene, it really makes you feel more involved.
Yeah. Lastly from Xrian is unrealistic invisible walls / roadblockers. Most of all, I hate these. Nathan Drake can climb a mountain 3 seconds after falling off a skyscraper, but can't hop an Amazon box in a hallway. Yet nothing compares to Pokemon. Every game has one unbelievably dumb roadblock. The guys who won't let you pass because they're dancing. The guy who won't let you walk by because he dropped something. The old man laying on the floor.
Snorlax.
If you're going to block my progress, please let it be somewhat believable.
Yeah, Snorlax is maybe believable, but yeah, I can't believe sometimes when I just can't roll over even, like, these substances that are just blocking everything. And that's another part about what you say when, like, you can't jump sometimes off an obvious ledge, like, that takes you out of the game a little bit, or, like, if you can't go past an obvious point.
Oh, man. Final Fantasy XI was notorious for that. And I remember playing, like, I would be playing on Skype with my best friend, and she just got tired of me complaining about it, because I'm like, why can't I step over this 1 foot rise? Like, this is literally the only thing stopping me from progressing. But instead, no, I have to go all the way around this long way in this cave and get lost 3 times because my character couldn't, like, step up 1 foot. I'm a fat dude and I could get past this obstacle. Like, what's your problem? You're a bloody Dark Knight. You should be better than this. It's really irritating.
Good shit as always, Xrian.
Yes, thank you. Heading over to Twitter, we got a handful and then a couple over at Facebook. So I'll take care of these. Chiming in first is fellow Pixel Bitter Jesse, who I'm hoping to have on the show for an upcoming stage select topic. I need to get with him before I announce that one.
Nice.
He's on Twitter at idiot savant, idiot_savant, and idiot is done in the tech type with its ID 10T. So you know that. His top 3 pet peeves. Number 1, lack of fast travel or crappy fast travel options in open world and Metroidvania style games. Yeah, Witcher 3 is a prime example of that because, like, you can only fast travel when you get to a road sign, but not just from the wilderness in general. So if you're, like, way out in the boonies and you want to get somewhere, like, if you just want to get back to, like, the armor smith, like, you gotta, like, trek to a sign, and that's kind of annoying. Number 2 is bosses with insta-kill attacks in games that otherwise don't have them.
Oh, my God. That happens in those Souls games.
Does it?
I mean, Neo, it does.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess there's, like, in those cases, it's more like, that's kind of telling you that, like, oh, you're not ready for this yet.
Yeah. Sometimes it forces you to level up a little bit, but other times it's just like, man, I just need more health and I would be able to beat this thing. Like, he's got way more health, and why is he special?
Right. I'm trying to think of any examples. I know that they're out there. It's definitely a hella cheap move, especially if it's not well advertised. Like sometimes it'll be a thing where it's like, okay, this boss is obviously winding up for this huge move that I need to, like, get out of the way of. But, you know, if it's just like a banging you're dead type thing with like really no warning, that's pretty crappy.
Mm.
And his last one is overcomplicated or obtuse menu systems. I think we've got more than one of those. Like, people really don't like convoluted menu systems and inventory. Next up is a friend of the show and Hack Thought podcast host, Mike Fallick. Go check out the Hack Thought podcast, especially this latest episode. Holy crap. It's something. You should definitely listen to it. But, he's on Twitter at Big Little Weasel. He says, number 1 is sound necessary games. Cause fuck off, I want to play and listen to podcasts. So I know that Mike has been playing a lot of retro games lately, and I know like one of them was Metroid, so I can see how like maybe those old school NES repetitive tracks don't, play too well for you, but I almost never turn the sound off in my games. I actively like listening to the dialogue and listening to the music. The only times that I've really like shut it off to listen to podcasts and stuff are like games that I know inside and out. Like I'll do that with like Final Fantasy 11 and 14, especially if I'm just farming. I'll do that with Diablo 3, especially because it's like I've beaten that game so many times at this point. I'm really just there to see the numbers go up and to get better loot. So, what I'll do in that case is I'll leave the sound effects on, but turn the music off because I really love the sound effects of Diablo 3. They're so meaty and crunchy. I love it. But by and large, I really like to hear my games. Except for Mike's number 2, which is low health noise. He says, I know I suck at the game. Might have sent me a text saying you're playing badly. And, Zelda is notorious for this. Actually, Nintendo's notorious for this. Mario, Zelda, and Metroid all, like, have really annoying, low health things. But I'll add to that, like, modern games where when you have, like, the regenerating health, but it does the whole, like, bloodshot or blood splattering the screen or some sort of distortion to let you know that you're low on health, because I feel that makes it even harder. It's like you're already sucking, and now we're going to put this filter on it that makes it even harder for you to succeed. Good luck.
Suck some more.
Exactly. You will die and do this part again.
Yeah. Or just never get past this and wish you never started in the first place. For hours.
Yes. Mike's number 3 makes my heart hurt. He says, unskippable cutscenes. I didn't want them to start. They are never needed to play. To which I ask, Mike, have you ever watched a movie and then just, like, listened to 10% of the dialogue? Because I feel that that's what you do in a story-based video game when you're skipping all the cutscenes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story-based game. Like, they're there for a reason. I understand if it's like, there are definitely games that shoehorn story in where story is not needed, but games like the recent God of War or Horizon Zero Dawn or The Witcher or just any number of those types of games, mm-hmm. It's like, you're missing out on so much excellence and really good writing. Yeah.
And the most important
fleshing
part,
everything out.
Character development, second most important. Those mostly happen in cutscenes, but I kind of agree if you're playing it through the second or third time and you don't want to, you remember that and you don't want to see it again. So, I feel like maybe it should be locked, or the developers should suggest that it be locked, the first time around, but then you should be able to do speed runs and stuff without having to watch that.
Yeah, and I'm all for, customizing your game experience. I think it should be an option. If it's not an option already to at least skip a cutscene if you want, you should be able to turn it on in the options. But again, it should be like a confirm type thing. Cause I hate the situation, cause there's another, the reverse problem of this are games where you can skip a cutscene by just pressing a button accidentally. And then, you missed out on that part of the story. Cause I want it to be you press a button and then it says, do you want to skip this cutscene? Yes or no? And then let me confirm, because I'm the type of person that does not want to miss a beat of the story. And there's definitely games where it's my thumb grazed the A button, mm-hmm. and now I'm back into the game and I don't know what just happened.
Yep.
And in really well written games, the cutscenes actually tell you what you're going to need to do next. So it's oh, what am I doing? Where am I supposed to go?
I mean, I had a nostalgic backlash, like, where I thought of so many times where I was just so lost after not paying attention or skipping through on accident.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah, because I mean, some of them, like, especially, like, I think, like, some of the Metal Gear games and definitely Resident Evil games will be like the character will look in a direction that you should probably go investigate, like, after you're out of that cutscene. But the game's not going to outright tell you that you need to go do that. It's basically just giving you, like, these visual cues in that cutscene. And it's like, oh yeah, that's probably my next, thing that I need to go look at, right?
Couple that, though, with, like, you pointing backwards when the area ahead looks basically the same as the area behind. And then you're just, like, at a crossroads where you're like, well, I'm really going to have to get to know this area because I have no idea where I am.
Yeah. Just wander around for infinity. Next up is our buddy Bobby Bronson, on Twitter at BG Bronson. Record some more TNB podcast, you coward. We miss it. His number one is crafting systems and other resource management. They seem to be in every major game these days, and sometimes I just want to find my items. Yeah. Again, I think it just, like, comes down to poor inventory design or overly convoluted inventory design. And I think if you could just, like, streamline that, although not every game needs to have a crafting system. I'm definitely, like, God of War definitely didn't need it. And it was an annoying crafting system to boot.
Yeah.
But then, like, Horizon Zero Dawn, I thought did it really well, where it really felt like, I'm picking up these things in the environment. I'm going to craft them into ammo, right? Like it was very vital stuff that you needed. And it was also cool because you could craft stuff on the fly. And I liked that a lot.
And, like, some RPGs, like Final Fantasy 15 do it really well too, where there's a lot of different, like, dishes you can make and cook by putting together different fish with, like, different side dishes and stuff. And you really feel like you kind of organically learn how to do those things in a well-crafted system. But other times it's just like, I'm not sure why I have these stones and they're just different colors, but one's really good and one's really bad. And I'm going to use the wrong one on it first because there's no rhyme or reason to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob's number two is not being able to unlock things by just playing the game. This is a big one in fighting games. One of my favorite parts as a kid was working hard to unlock a character, but now they're all behind paywalls. And I hadn't really thought about that, but he's totally right. Like, modern fighting games, the concept of unlocking extra characters, like by playing through the arcade mode or story mode or what have you, it's kind of gone. I think maybe, like, Mortal Kombat has, like, a handful of characters you can unlock, but most of them are definitely, like, DLC.
Yeah, I actually think, it's just for beating the final boss, you unlock Shinnok, but.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
I don't even really play as Shinnok in the first place. I'm more of a Quan Chi type guy.
I don't mind, like, adding extra characters via DLC, but not when it feels like you purposefully, like, stripped out characters from the roster to actually make it feel like a bare bones game initially. Mm-hmm. But at least do the damn, like, costumes, have those be unlockable. Yeah. Especially with, like, games like Street Fighter V where they look ugly and they're expensive. Like, that's just a double whammy.
Right.
If they're gonna look that bad, let me just unlock them for free.
Yeah, it's fun unlocking them in Mortal Kombat. That's one thing they still do. You have to, like, go through eons and eons of games to unlock the crypt stuff, but it happens.
But at least it's, yeah.
It's organic.
Yeah, absolutely. Bobby's last one is drab color palettes. It's hard for me to play a game for a long time if the whole thing looks the same or is boring to look at. I remember having this issue in Fallout New Vegas and Nier specifically. Hey, just don't give me enough, they just don't give me enough visually. And longtime listeners know that I've complained about that for a long time. But if anything, I think that we're in a golden age of color in video games now. And I think a lot of that has to do with the advent of HDR in television displays, because now it's like, it's a race to see how many colors people can put on the screen at once. And I'm loving it. Everything looks so blush and vibrant now. And, it's such a far cry from all of the washed out grays and drab browns of the last generation that was just, like, all over the place.
Right. Killzone and Gears of War, even, like, two of the best games, mostly silvers and browns and blacks.
Yeah.
And red.
Yeah.
Of course red, but.
And, like, most of the Call of Duty games, I played, cause they'd given out, Call of Duty Black Ops 3 around E3 as, like, a bonus PS Plus game. And, I liked Black Ops 2, so I was playing that. it was very colorful, and I was very surprised.
Really?
I was like, this is a much different looking game than, the last couple Call of Duties that I played. And I'm not an expert on that series. I've only played a handful of them, but I could definitely tell a difference. I was like, yeah, this is a nice looking game.
See, like, even though my friends and I all got it for free and I told them to download it, like half of them were like, no, it's Call of Duty. I'm not going to download it. So that's like our group, the Master Playtime Jammers. It's, yeah, my guys who, will play anything. Like, we got together with Destiny more than anything, but also Rocket League. And, we've been through all the classics of this generation. But we won't even play that.
I was impressed with the zombie mode on that one, because I've never played any of the zombie stuff.
Yeah, it could be fun.
And
I did it for Blops 1.
Yeah, well, this one, they went all out, because they have 4 different characters, and they're all, like, celebrity actors, and it's their likenesses and their voices and everything. I mean, you can play as a magician that is Jeff Goldblum killing zombies, and that's okay.
That's funny. Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah, it could be good for, like, just a night off.
Yeah, it was a pretty neat mode, because it's like, you're basically surviving waves of zombies, but you're earning points, and then you can spend those points to get better weapons or get health perks or unlock more of the area. Cause part of the strategy is like having more room to maneuver and also get to better items and better weapons and stuff like that. So I was pretty impressed with the depth of that extra mode. But I'm also not very good at first person shooters, so couldn't survive very long. Got a couple more rounding out on Twitter. Next up is Red Venom on Twitter at Zakelli7. He's got just 3 quick ones. Number 3 is bad inventory systems. Sort by order or what? And, I think we've said all we can say about bad inventory systems at this point. It is a sticking point for the listeners of Nerds Without Pants. And I understand. I feel your pain.
Man, I never even thought of it as that bad, honestly, but like, sometimes you have like really fun items to use, and stay tuned for what I'm gonna have to do for another stage select. But damn it, like I think we need to streamline this for people, because I realized, sometimes I don't understand what I'm using, but why can't L2 just like grab something from your inventory and like tell you like either R2 to throw it if you like that's the best thing to do at the time, or like in order to eat it, Yeah.
More contextual, button prompts and stuff like that.
Just because, like, if you were holding on to stuff, you would know in the game, like, of life, what to eat at what time. You're not going to think about that.
Right. Next up is console ports without graphics options, and I asked for a clarification. And basically what he means is when you have like a PC port of a console game, that should run way better on your PC, because like you've probably got a really nice gaming rig, but the actual game itself doesn't have a lot of options that allow you to exploit how good your system is. Like it doesn't have like an unlocked frame rate, or it doesn't, give you all of the like, field of view options and all that good stuff. Like I know PC players really like to fiddle with like every little nut and bolt in the graphics options to get it just so, which again, like I play on Xbox, so I just set it to, enhanced graphics for 4K, and I'm good. Like it does what it needs to do for me. Mm-hmm. And Red Venom's number 1 is useless good-looking gear in RPGs. The blue isn't greater than a legendary. And I kind of agree with that, but I think most games that have that, where it's like you have this really nice-looking piece of gear, but the stats suck, I think they kind of exist just so that you can keep them in order to transmogrify them. And so you get like this really awesome piece of gear later on, but you don't like the way it looks. But then you just graft the style of this older piece of gear onto it, right? Yeah. Like Final Fantasy 14 does that. Diablo does that. World of Warcraft does that.
Yeah, Neo does that, where you can forge 2 swords together, or like a sword and a dual swords together to something else, where you take like the level of some, like the staff that you want, or the sword that you want, or axe, whatever it may be, and then you put the stats of the other one into it, and then have like a different end game.
Yeah. So I'm kind of all right with that. I mean, in the case of like Final Fantasy 14, like they'll straight up give you like cosmetic gear it's level 1 so that you can use it for any job that you want, no matter what. But it's literally there to like just, you know, basically glamour it is what they call it on 14 onto a higher piece of gear. People really love that stuff. Let's see. We got a DM on Twitter from Jeff S. at Jesteffoff at, I'm just going to spell it out. Jesthoff.
He slid
that's
right
an easier way
in.
to do it. Jess the Hoff. Just think about it that way.
Hoff sliding in.
He says, glad you're back on the air for all of us to enjoy. When it comes to pet peeves in video games, there are some that stand out to me. One, no ability to skip tutorials in some games. Just give me the option. I can figure it out. Right there with you, my friend. Number 2, armor and clothing not changing appearance in games. I know it takes effort, but it always makes me groan when a character's equipment stays the same throughout a game. Yes. Yes. That bugs the hell out of me.
Yeah. Or you only get like 1 upgrade or 2 upgrades. Even that's like, man, I have hundreds of options in real life or in other games. Like, why can't you dedicate one person to making a bunch of shirts?
Yeah. And like you said, it definitely takes more work. You have to do more art and stuff like that. And then I know that some games, they don't want to interfere with the cutscenes. I know that's a big thing on the Final Fantasy games is like they use so much CG, cutscenes that they don't want like the style to clash. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, just have the armor magically appear on their bodies when they go into battle. Solved, right? Yeah. And like even, so like Octopath Traveler, again, a modern game that's paying homage to older RPGs, your characters have the same weapon graphic no matter what you equip them with. And it's like, guys, Final Fantasy 1 had different looking weapons as you progress through the game. How does this game that came out in 2018 not have that? I know that you can't show different pieces of armor because they're sprites and that would be way too much work, but you can at least change the sword. Lastly, from Jeff S. is cheap roadblocks. I get it. You don't want me to go to that area yet, but a small tree or an easily surmountable wall is not a good excuse. Kind of echoing what, you know, some other people have said about just like these arbitrary boundaries and stuff like that. And I think that's getting better as games progress, but it's still a bummer when you just run into like, you know, a place that seems like a very easy thing that your character could overcome. And it's like, oh, you just can't cross this for reasons.
Yeah.
And then 2 more, moving over to facebook.com, /Nerds Without Pants podcast. I opened that up and, you know, for this and, you know, a couple people went ahead and hit us up there and that's an option definitely. First up is, Javier Krieger. I hope I said that right. I know you've been a really supportive fan and I just realized I've never read your name out loud. Number 3 is games with little to no reward for exploration. I'm not saying there needs to be elixirs around every corner, but if I explore all around the map and don't find any items or lore or anything, it's frustrating. Halo 4 says hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bummer, especially because, like, I feel that I've gotten wise to, like, the way that developers populate their levels to where I'm like, I bet that there's something right around here. And I'll turn a corner and usually there's something there, but every once in a while there isn't. I'm like, so I just came all the way out here for nothing. Like there's literally no reason for this hallway to exist.
Yeah. I mean,
you guys just like, this is extra work for you guys that like the artists and the developers. Like, why is this here?
Sometimes they're just trying to make it more of a spaghetti level, but it's better too much than too little, you know, just like have additional areas that seem like, you know, the world is more real, I guess. But in the same vein, if like, or in the, actually the exact opposite, if you don't have quite enough, then I'm stuck before a boss trying to farm a certain like ailment in order to use in battle. Otherwise, like I get paralyzed or I get, poisoned too much. And like, if I just have to like get an extra needle or something like that, like,
yeah. So it's probably a lot to ask to say like, oh, maybe throw an audio diary over here or like a piece of readable lore, but you know, throw some health packs over there or just like some item that you can pick up, right? Like it doesn't have to be anything major, just something that says like, yeah, we wanted you to come over here, right?
mm-hmm.
You didn't waste the trip. Number 2, and Javier is a big Square Roots fan, so, this doesn't surprise me. Status effects that barely affect enemies, do nothing to bosses since they're immune, and devastate your party. I'm struggling to say anything because this one just makes me so mad because it's been the bane of my RPG existence for so many years.
Oh my god, I'm thinking of so many times I've used stuff on my own party on accident because I'm doing stuff active time battle so fast. You're so right.
Literally up until Final Fantasy X, you would get all these spells like Poison and Berserk and Stone and Tiny and all of this stuff that didn't work on anybody. But your party would get annihilated by that stuff. Yeah. And then it was finally Final Fantasy X where it was like, oh no, not only do these spells work, but they are vital to you succeeding. Like if you don't cast Blind on this super powerful enemy, he is going to annihilate you. But if you cast Blind, he's pretty much powerless. Right? And I like that. I like being rewarded for that. And that was one of the things that I really liked about the Bravely Default games is like, they really paid tribute to that to the point where like, if you would fight a zombie, you could cast Cure or Life on it and do major damage to it. Because in older Final Fantasy games, zombies, since they're undead, they can be harmed by curative effects. So, there are certain bosses in older Final Fantasy games that you can kill in one hit by just casting, Life on them or giving them a Phoenix down. That's still a relatively recent, and by recent I mean like the last 17 years. But still, considering the history of video games, like, you don't see that used enough in video games. And then last one is, unskippable cutscenes right before a difficult boss fight. Again, I want to watch the cutscene, but if I've died 4 times on that boss and I have to watch that damn cutscene every single time, I'm gonna have a bad time.
Yeah. And it's like, I used to like this too.
Yeah, it's like, this was a really, oh yeah, freaking, wait. No, I think you could skip it on Metal Gear Rising. Yeah, cause I was able to skip that. But, I definitely died on that guy. A lot. And I know you did too.
Fuck that.
Last up over at the Facebook page is our buddy Matt Jorgensen, who is a big contributor to the show and always retweets our stuff and gets the word out. I really appreciate that. Number 3 is totally useless party members. As a big JRPG and RPG guy, the idea of putting a party together always sparks my interests. Until I find the party member who has notable strength, or who has noticeable strength relative to the rest and just gathers dust in the menus. What's the point? Why couldn't they just be NPCs if they don't serve any kind of worthwhile purpose? Blarg. I'm trying to think of the last time that I really noticed that happening. Because I feel like as parties get smaller and smaller in RPGs because they don't want to like spend the time to like flesh out these characters, like it's not as much of a thing. I guess maybe Quina on Final Fantasy IX. I felt she was completely useless. But I also don't like blue mages in general in the Final Fantasy series. So
yeah, they're like never useful.
That was also a bummer.
They're just there.
Yeah. Yeah. So just and even this last time that I played through the game with the Square Roots podcast, like I tried to level her and make her better. And nope. Waste of space. Next up is collectibles that are just numbers. I love collecting things, but I want to get something out of it. A bit of story, a stat up, heck, even just my character doing a little dance. More than just a little number going up. But it's really cool to see those numbers going up, man. I gotta tell you. I do agree with that though. Like, when you can give more than that, like if you can give a little bit of lore or like a little bit more perspective on your character, or even just like experience points and stuff like that. Well, no, I guess that's the thing that he doesn't want, but I like experience points. Last one is this one seems very personal. Characters not fucking being left-handed. This drives me nuts. Being left-handed, I can understand a story-driven game having a fixed-handedness. Nathan Drake flipping back and forth would be dumb. But in a game where you can design your character, you should let me choose. It's 2018 for pity's sake. I'm mostly right-handed. I'm kind of semi-ambidextrous, so I don't quite understand the struggle. But it seems important to you, so I'll get behind it. You should be able to pick the dominant hand for your character. Unless it's Link, because, you know, people get really angry when he's not using the sword in the correct hand.
What? I'm fucking lefty. There's no correct hand. You should learn to use both.
Holy crap, Patrick. That was a long stage select, but I guess it needed to be because we hadn't done it in a while. But damn, almost 2 hours. So, thanks to everybody who submitted. That was a lot of fun.
Seriously, everybody loved it. That makes me feel like, we should, keep this here.
Oh, yeah. This isn't going anywhere. In fact, we are going to do stage select on the next episode. So, Patrick, why don't you lay it out for us?
Yeah, so, I mean, I wasn't going to necessarily do this next time, but I feel like we got to balance out, like, the bad that just happened with, like, the item bags. And, like, so, like, if your item bag in real life could be filled with 5 items of anything you've seen in a video game or your own life, what would you pick? Basically, like, your 5 favorite things you'd put in, like, your simple bag before you get that expanded bag where you could put 30 things in. I'm like, what are the things you take to a desert island, basically, but what are the items you put in your bag? What are your favorite ones? And, you know, you don't have to give 5, I guess, but whatever comes to mind is, like, you know, an ultimate weapon or even anything that, like, really ailed you or, like, was able to devastate an enemy that you remember or something like that, and you just really like having that item in your bag. Let me know.
Sounds good. I would say if we're doing that, then, you know, keep them kind of short because we can go. So
yeah, but I feel like items are probably the least important thing in a game. Like, they're like accessories in Aristotle's, you know.
You just throw them in your really convoluted inventory system and don't look at them again.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's going to be a good one. So, listeners, if you want to submit your 5 items for your bag of holding, you can go over to pixelbit.com and comment in the show thread for episode 137. You can hit us up on Twitter at NWPcast. We have our DMs open, so if you have more to say, you can throw it in there.
You got in that bag.
That's right. Or you can head over to facebook.com/nerdswithoutpants podcast and comment there. But that's going to do it for this edition of Stage Select. Time to roll on into Consumption Junction, probably an abbreviated one. Patrick. Yeah, it'll probably be a little shorter one.
Yeah.
I've just got really one thing to talk about, but what have you got for us, my friend? Because it sounded like you had something cooking that you had kind of alluded to.
I've been talking about it for a little while, but yeah, I guess I basically explained a lot of my strength and weaknesses with NioH. I've learned to deal with like a really complicated gameplay system in the last couple of months in a short period of time. But it's been kind of frustrating at other times when you do fall off random ledges. I really like the story about like ninjutsu and like these spirit animals like that you unlock, and I like these little things you can find in each level, and the levels are basically spaghetti where you like open certain doors and you're able to come back to places or from earlier and do other things, but you can also find like these things around the shrine called kodamas that are like even more adorable frogs than frogs. And they do like enhance certain parts of like the game if you ask for certain blessings, but they also, like open up save areas. Like once you found them, they're just like there when you find a new save area and you pray. So there's like some really cool stuff and like really psychedelic stuff that I like. You know, I always like something out of the ordinary that's like hallucinogenic or something. Like, man, that is just really fun to see at like a level where when you find these kodamas, these little like walking frog things, they like have these hats on. And if like you're fighting at the same time, they'll like pop in like a turtle where all you could see is the hat on the ground, and then they'll get back up and shake themselves like a little bit after a little while when nothing happens, and you can like guide them back to your shrine or whatever, but you just basically press O. It's not like an escort mission. It's fun when that like can be augmented into either changing your percentage for finding like materials or items or elixirs specifically, or like getting more Amrita, which is like your EXP system, or your souls in the Dark Souls game. So, I mean, it's just basically like a ninjutsu flavor of a Dark Souls game. And it's really awesome when you go into the menus to change your weapons as well, or like upgrade them. There's like 45 different skills, I think, for every, like, from swords, double swords, kusaragis, or whatever you call them, basically chains with size at the end. Like axes, there's spears, and like all of them are pretty useful. But like I just got into swords, like one sword having in my hand, like I feel like is the most pure thing, and it's like the thing you start with, you know, so it's probably going to work the best. But you can also do the double swords. I see a lot of that, like, because there's these other like revenants, they call them, or like dead souls basically, that come back to life when you want to play them, of other people that have already died, and it puts them at that level, but like allows you to pick up their armor, or like get these things called like ochokos, that like you use to pray at a shrine in order to bring a second person in. And sometimes you need that if you want to go through the level with the second person who like helps you at least the first time gain experience if you're under leveled, or defeat a boss without having to grind. And sometimes I have to grind for those ochokos, which is like really annoying because you just have to play these revenants over and over. And then these people leave, like, instead of helping you, and it's like, I just wasted 20 minutes of my life, and then you just like disappear out of nowhere. Come on, no, that's not fair. If you're helping me, you don't ruin part of my life. Like,
that seems very MMO-ish of that game, where it's like, you helped them, but they're not gonna, like, you know, help you back. Like, they got what they wanted and they peace out.
Yeah, or they're just, like, annoyed that you don't play the boss right away, and you're, like, looking for a little help getting a kodama or something like that, like, doing a little bit of an optional part. Like, sometimes you'll find people who, like, show you where these things are, and that's awesome. And, like, whoa, you're, like, really cool just for being here. I'm not really sure what you're even getting out of it, but I guess you really like the game that much. And there's those types of people in Nioh. But, like, other times, these people, like, they don't even tell you, explain in any way, like, hey, do this or I'm going to leave. And I would, but then, you know, like, I'm trying to get those kodamas and, like, you know, enjoy the level and get everything I can. But, yeah, so that's annoying. But the story's so cool with learning different ninjutsu, or Omra, I guess, is, like, the other kind of magic. There's two different kinds of magic, and being able to level those up with, like, a kunai, or with shurikens you can use, or like changing your blade, you can learn to poisonous or paralytic. And like, it's awesome when you can go to a shrine and like re up on those things just because you've learned them as skills, and you could put them in your shortcuts. Like, there's 8 shortcuts or so like it gets really deep that way. But there's also 3 different stances, high, medium, and low, that you can learn skills for as well. So, like, man, it just, like, never ends. And it's a, like, really deep system that, like, when you play a lot of different characters, you have to really think about, like, what their strengths and weaknesses are, as well as, like, where to hit them and how to sneak up on them, because you get, like, added damage for hitting them from the backside, or once they have, like, already attacked and they lose, like, their effort, or I guess it's called ki. It's basically their energy. Then you can, like, do devastating attacks that you learn from, like, leveling up different stances or different styles of fighting. So yeah, it's so deep, and yeah, it's fun. But then when you have to play the same level 45 to 100 times over the course of 3 hours, because you're not going to give up until you beat that boss, can be really annoying. Especially if you're falling randomly into the sides of like a shallow ocean that no self-respecting ninja would die in before you even...
But you're not bitter.
Before you even get to the boss some of the times, or somebody who helps you just dies from a one-hit kill like at the boss, like, or they just disappear for some reason while they're at the boss. And then like, yeah, you got to do it all yourself, of course, but it takes 3 hours in order to do that. It feels good when you win, but man, when other people make it worse on you and you die easier, I just wish I could talk to those people for a second.
I do feel that like that's kind of that style of game, as far as they want you to play methodically and everything, and it's almost like the more you fail and get frustrated and, you know, the sloppier you get. And it's almost like the game's saying, hey, put it down for a little bit, get collected, and then come back and, you know, get back into that state of mind type of thing. Cause yeah, you know, it's like, I felt that sometimes with like Bloodborne or like the little bit of Dark Souls that I've played, or more like Demon Souls. Cause I think I put like a good 16, 17 hours into Demon Souls, where it's like, yeah, you get this area down so pat, but then, you know, you die for some dumb reason, or you die a couple times on this like new part, but you have to go back through the older stuff that you've already done. And it's like, I've already done this. And then you start to get sloppy. And then all of a sudden you start like getting like cheap hits, or not cheap hits, but like you start taking damage that you shouldn't normally take, or you end up dying way earlier and stuff. And I think it's more of the game saying, yeah, like, even though you know this spot, like, this is still dangerous if you're not paying attention, and we want you to pay attention at all times.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
But I, you know, if you're doing it, you know, like, for 3 hours straight trying to beat the same boss, then yeah, it can get super frustrating.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're really into it. Like, when you brought it up last episode, I thought it was going to be like, oh, Patrick bought a game on sale. He's going to play it for a few hours and then, like, you know, put it down and move on to something else or something. But it sounds like you've really been sticking with it.
I probably put like 20 hours into it in the course of the time that I've had it. I'm not sure really what that is, but I was looking at other games and tried to get back into some stuff like Doom, even that I'm like halfway through. And I was like, I'd rather just keep learning this system, because I got like mildly into it. I was intermediate, and I'm like, if I lose it now, I'm going to lose it forever. It was one of those games where I can't even go back to The Witcher because of that, I guess. I mean, it'll take me 15 to 20 minutes to learn again, but now I've got like the dodge mechanisms and the parrying, you know, basically the back of my hand. So like I don't mess those things up, and that's what you need to be really good at when you're in those slow and methodical games. Usually you have to wait and like bide your time, like at just the right moment outside of their reach, so you can dodge them and jump back in really fast and like get a couple hits in, and then of course dodge roll back again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. I really want to sit down and play, because I own Dark Souls 3 on PS4. And then I got Dark Souls 1 as an Xbox Live Games with Gold game, like way back when. And it's like, I really want to sit down and play all the way through one of those games, because I have this feeling that I'm actually low-key kind of great at those style of games, because I've only played little bits and pieces of like a bunch of them, but I've always done really well. Like, I didn't, the time that I played Demon Souls, like, I didn't really run into anything that I felt was overwhelming or too hard or too cheap. I was just like, oh, I just have to be careful and like take my time.
Yeah.
And then same thing with Bloodborne. Like, there were a lot of bosses that I would hear people, even on podcasts, way before I actually played Bloodborne, I would hear the names of some of these bosses as like, and almost in like hushed tones. Like, oh man, it took me so long to beat this boss or that boss. And then I would get to that boss and then just like stomp it on my first time through. And I was like, I think I'm kind of good at these games.
Yeah, sometimes it works to your advantage. Like, whereas sometimes I'm less patient with a slow methodical game, because I'm really good at, like counteracting
twitchier stuff.
Yeah. Like on the fly changing my tactics and stuff. But like, yeah, if I have to do the same thing over and over again, I kind of could lose my patience some of the time, and then I like relearn it and feel like I have better patience after that. So maybe it's good for me, but it's very annoying when you do have to do those things over and over again. So you might as well get them right the first time, and if you're not perfect, then yeah, I can get into that hole where I get worse and worse. Sloppier.
I feel like you need some sort of Zen game, like a little indie game to be playing alongside this one. Just so it's like when you get to that point where it's like, I've been doing this for like an hour straight and I'm getting worse at it. Then you just like, quit out of there and then go over to the Zen game and just like, I'm just going to play Flower or, something along those lines, right? Where it's just like, I'm just going to relax and like play through this low impact thing. And maybe in the back of your head, you're thinking about how you can do better on Neo. And then, you finish with a little indie game for a little bit and then you boot up Neo again. And it's like all of a sudden it comes to you and you do like a perfect run.
Yeah. But actually I stopped even playing Hearthstone just because too much other stuff I need to do in the day. And there's actually been a new expansion for that again called the Boomsday Project. So like there's different mechanics that are kind of like Dr. Boom back in the day, but I've only opened a few packs and got a couple legendaries, and I heard the percentages are even up for that. But as far as like a second game where I can even like bide my time when I want to go back to Neo, I just haven't even had that opportunity because I've been pretty busy getting the other event together and getting ready to be on a panel / have a booth there and like putting content for other things. So like I've been working late anyways, and that like is usually what keeps me sane in terms of not getting stuck in one level for hours on the end. Yeah, I mean, it's fun just to lose yourself for a little bit at the end of the week and have a good day or something like that after the weekend.
Yeah. I have lost myself in The Witcher 3 something fierce.
That's good. I knew you would like that one.
Yeah, it's funny because I had tried playing that game from the beginning a few times, and it was the first time, it wasn't that I didn't like the game. Like, it's not that it didn't grab me. It was more like every time that I started it up, I wasn't ready for it. Like I had bought it on sale digitally on Xbox One, and I just fired it up just to see what the game looked like, and I was like, holy crap, this game is beautiful. And then I didn't really go much further than that. And then the second time I started from the beginning, and I went back through the tutorial and I did a little more stuff and then I stopped. I did that again one more time because it had been so long and I just forgotten how to play the game. And then again, I put it down. And then finally, I don't even know why, I ended up firing it up randomly because I was in the middle. I had been playing Octopath Traveler and I'd been playing, Yakuza on the PS4, but I was like, for some reason, I just really want to try The Witcher 3 again and just see, really put some time into it. And I think part of it is that I had finally unpacked and hooked up my Xbox One again because I hadn't done that since the move, mainly because I've been playing so many PS4 exclusives since the move, God of War, Detroit, Yakuza. So I did that. And then I was reminded how much I love my Xbox One. And I also just purchased some headphones, like a headset for a couple reasons. One is that it is hella hot right now and my apartment doesn't cool very well. So I've got 3 fans running at full blast in my living room just to keep myself cool. And it's kind of hard to hear the TV when you got all that going on. So the headset allows me to hear everything perfectly. But also the Xbox One X supports Dolby Atmos. And I wanted to experience that, and this particular headset supports Dolby Atmos. And I gotta say, Patrick, that stuff is really hella cool. I haven't played any video games that support it yet, because they're rolling it out a little bit at a time. But I watched Ready Player One, with it, and it's just really cool. It's this really nice surround sound and everything. But anyway, so I'm playing The Witcher 3 that way, and it's a lot more immersive with the headset. It really, keeps me invested in the game because, I'm not missing any dialogue. Because, sometimes the audio of games is mixed in such a way to where it doesn't really come through too clearly through either TV speakers or a sound bar. They're really designed for a surround system, but I don't have that. But now I have, fake surround with this headset. But yeah, so I fired The Witcher back up and I played past, the very beginning. And basically the thing that got me hooked was when you do the first major hunt where you take down the griffin. Cause like, it wasn't just fighting this monster. You had to do all this groundwork. Like, you had to do, like, investigate. You had to talk to people. You had to find items in order to make a lure to, like, bring it out of hiding. And, it was also like, you probably want to craft, like, this certain oil and this potion to help you in the battle. And I was like, this is really cool. But the thing that really has kept me going is the thing that I really loved about Horizon. And now I understand that Horizon was basically just copying The Witcher. But it's the way that the quests are set out. And again, this is kind of what I was alluding to at the beginning during stage select, was that Final Fantasy 15, you walk up to a guy at a counter, he tells you to go bring him 5 of this. And then you go out into the field, you kill 5 of the thing, you get the 5 things that you need, you go back to that guy, and you turn it in, he gives you the reward, and then immediately has something else for you to do. And there's really no story behind it, there's no, you're just doing it because it's there. Right. And I feel that it's been this ongoing problem since the MMO became popular, like definitely with World of Warcraft. I think that was the kicker, where the fetch quest became king of the land. And it didn't matter if there was any story behind it. It was more of just like a treadmill of this thing that you do to get more stuff, to proceed in the game. But what The Witcher 3 does is even side quests, you'll start a side quest, and then that'll lead you to an area, and then there's another side quest there that just organically starts up. And then at that point, you can decide if you want to continue on the quest that you were already on, or continue down this other path. But it never feels like the game is tugging at you, or like trying to like grab you and say, look over here, which is my complaint about Batman Arkham City and Batman Arkham Knight, where there it's like you're moving towards a goal, but then someone is screaming over here, and it's like, well, I'm Batman, I have to go help the person screaming. Yeah. But then it immediately like fails you out of the mission that you're on, because like it can't really switch between the two things on the fly, where The Witcher 3 is very fluid and seamless in the way it does it. And I'm just kind of constantly in awe of like even these smaller quests that seem like in any other game, it would just be this throwaway like text dialogue and stuff. But it's like, no, this has got like all these really cool characters that you're interacting with. It tells a story. Sometimes that story leads into other stories. Sometimes those stories actually impact the main quest line. Like, it's just really smartly done, and it makes me really excited for Cyberpunk 2077, to be perfectly honest, because like, if this is the type of quest design and writing that these guys are capable of, I'm amazed. Yeah. It's really well done.
Yeah, honestly, like, cause like so many games have tried to be medieval and it's an easy way to like make things more primitive. I just really like the fact that they're going to go for really intense quest structures that are going to get really into cyberpunk, or stuff that's kind of futuristic as well as like alternate reality based, it seems like, because like cyberpunk's basically like getting really into like gasoline and stuff like that, whereas we've gotten more into electricity in our worlds usually. So yeah, it's fun to see like them pursue a different kind of energy, and I would like to see where that goes, because they have these structures of quests where like you're going from one place of the map to the other to follow either the hero or like the rogue in question, or the summoner or something like that, who's like you find at the top of a tower, some other reason that you need to go from there in order to help them when you thought you had to help somebody else. So they'll like switch things up in the middle of your quest, or like double the quest amount, like from like like a triangle base or something like that, where you have to go from here to there and back again instead of just here and back. So it seems a lot more complicated a lot of the time.
Yeah, there was this really cool one that I did, and I think it was this old lady who she had moved away for a long time, and she came home and found out that her brother had died, but their manor had been taken over by monsters, and she asked you to go clear it out. And you go there, but the place is all booby-trapped and everything. And then you find out that there is like another Witcher that apparently Geralt has dealt with in the previous games. And he killed all the monsters in there, but he's actually on the run from this other guy, this like bandit king, basically. And you can leave him to his own devices, but I went along with him, and it's like, in the back of my head, I'm like, wait, but do I still need to like go back to the manor and like clear that area out? Cause I'm now like, I'm running, like on my horse going along with this guy, and we hit up like 3 more spots. And I did all this stuff with him, and it told this really cool story and everything, and it was all awesome. But then I was like, okay, let me like bring up the quest thing for her. And then I realized that I was back in the town that I had started at. So she was right next door. And I was like, that is bloody brilliant. Like, that was very well thought out, because like, on one hand, I was taking this detour, but on the other hand, they knew that I was going to take that detour and made sure that quest took me back to the original quest starter. And I was like, yes, right. That is wonderful. Yeah. And, it's definitely, got its issues. Like, we've talked about the inventory system already. I also think the combat is bland to poor in some situations. I'm getting better at the combat as I go on, but it's a far cry from like a Dark Souls or, a Shadow of War or a Batman game where, I think those games really nail their melee combat. And this is like, it's fine. It gets the job done, but there are definitely times where it's like I'm hitting this thing and I'm not really getting much feedback out of it. It's like, I'm like, I saw the numbers go up, but I can't really tell that other than that I did anything to this thing. Like, it's not recoiling. It's not like I don't really get any feedback from like the controller or anything that the sword actually connected. Right. And then I'm taking damage where I'm like, how did you touch me? I didn't even, like, what? That doesn't even know that, cause I'm trying to get this achievement where you fight 5 enemies in a battle and don't take any damage, and they always seem to get one cheap hit in at some point, and I'm like, motherfucker.
Gotta get good.
Like, there is no way that yeah.
Get good, Julian.
I guess so, yeah. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Like, honestly, like, it sucked me into such a point that it's like, I'm thinking about it at work, and I'm like, man, I wish I was still unemployed because I could just like play this day in and day out, but I can't.
It's a great Polish game. Even my dad got into like the books a little bit because they're, based off a good fantasy lore and background. And
yeah, I definitely want to pick those up at some point now and give them a go, because it's a pretty interesting world, and I like, I was taking Swedish for a while, and so it's like the pronunciation, the names of some of these characters is very. Like, I know it's from Poland, but, it's kind of the same wheelhouse and stuff. I'm like, yeah, I can definitely see some of the influences here, but it's their own twist on it and everything, and it's a pretty interesting world.
What's awesome is, like, the people in Poland are so proud of it. I'm pretty sure even when, like, a high person in the government in Poland met Obama, they gave him one of the Witcher games, like, and were like, play this.
Yeah. And I told this to a friend of the show, John Golson, but I really want to see like somebody do a video where it's Geralt having a conversation with Solid Snake and Adam Jensen from Deus Ex, because they're basically the same person. It's like they've all got the deep, raspy, gravelly voice. I just want to hear all 3 of them like just kind of talking at a table. Metal Gear, I've got to go fight a griffin.
Oh my god.
But that's pretty much all I've been up to since the last episode.
So much testosterone.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's probably it, huh, Patrick?
Yeah, I mean,
especially since we went so long on State Select.
Yeah, that about does it. That's still a mammoth of a podcast compared to some others, but
yeah,
we passed the 2-hour mark for y'all.
Yeah, you got your fill. Are you not entertained? There's some listeners who are like, no, you're supposed to go for like another half hour at least. Yeah,
well, we might when we have another guest. More input gives you more output.
Yep. more another guest, and eventually bring back a third segment. Well, whether that's Pack Watch or something new, we'll get there. Still in beta, but getting close to version 3.0's release. We'll get there when we get there. But until then, we are going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks again to all of our lovely listeners for submitting to State Select. Once again, Patrick, what are we doing for the next episode?
Your top 5 items in your item bag. List them fast.
That's right.
Or not. I mean, we'll prolong this thing, just like when you look in your bag and you're not sure what's in it.
Right? That's one of the things that I always like to think about is like, my character in Final Fantasy has like 99 high potions, and then all of this other stuff in there. Like, where does it go?
Yeah.
Or in Skyrim, when you're just like holding like as many beds as you can possibly hold. It's like, how are you holding those? How are you carrying those? I just always imagine that like you have some sort of like shrinking spell that automatically like makes everything miniature in your bag.
Definitely. I think like Alice in Wonderland, one pill makes you larger and one pill makes you small, and she just, can, I think of like your pockets as being really deep, like in an infinite level, so you put your hand in there and it like retrieves whatever it needs to, because otherwise, I'm not sure what I've been doing with all these tents after all these years. I'm pretty sure I'd be using them as parachutes when I jump anywhere.
Excellent. Once again, if you want to submit to State Select, you have different ways to do it. You can hit us up on pixelbit.com in the show thread for episode 137. On Twitter at NWPcast, and on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdswithoutpants podcast. But that's going to do it for this episode. So, I'm sorry. You can also find us on Twitter. Patrick, not that you're really using it very much.
Yeah, I need to reset my password if I want to get back into it, because I deleted it from my phone and the web app. For some reason, Apple doesn't remember this password that I've had for, however many years, and I haven't had to plug it in, but yeah, the funny thing is, I'm still at Some Boss. I just haven't used it for a while, even though I made a book with it. But yeah, I'll be back at some point. And if you don't want to check out mine, there's actually an active one I've been writing some copy for. It's called Voice of Blockchain, I believe. Blockchain Voice now, I think, actually. That's the one for the event that's going to be at Navy Pier on August 24th and 5th that I've been working toward, and going to be on a panel or two, so it's going to be fun. But yeah, I've been writing some stuff for that and LinkedIn, as well as some other content for Medium, and yeah, I'm all over the place.
Maybe just search his name and you'll get to him. You can find me on Twitter at Julian_Titus. That's going to do it for this edition of Nerds Without Pants. So for myself and Patrick, thanks for listening. And keep it pantsless, Internet. Goodbye.